Yeah, I'm all right. How are you? Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Friday, January 31st, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Donald Trump and MAGA, they think HBCU graduates are dumb, stupid, illiterate, and don't have any psychological understanding. Yeah, and Fox News, they have no problem spreading those lies as well. You should be concerned about funding for HBCUs. That is a huge issue. We'll talk to North Carolina Congresswoman Alma Adams about that very issue. We'll also be joined by CDC member Sidney Kamlager-Dove of California to talk about the federal freeze on funds and also how the raping and the pillaging of the federal government is underway, with Elon Musk having access to the sensitive data on how the federal government spends $6 trillion. Folks, we'll talk to two advocates for people with disabilities to discuss the attacks by Donald Trump and MAGA against disabled Americans. Fox gets called out for having DEI language on their job postings, so they start scrubbing the internet and removing that. North Carolina Republicans, they effed around and found out. Now they are regretting their votes. We'll show you some of these folks in our FAFO 2025 segment. Plus, digital show host Brian Tyler Cohen is going to be joining us, talking about the question, do Democrats actually have a spine to fight back against MAGA? It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, the Donald Trump MAGA attacks on HBCUs is not limited just to federal aviation. And at news conference yesterday, that shameful, despicable display, Donald Trump literally included HBCUs in his attacks on DEI. But it doesn't just end there. So you want to check, so watch what Jesse Waters, the House resident racist at Fox News, listen to what this absolute white privilege hire had to say on that network.
How are air traffic controllers not essential workers? I have no idea. And this DEI thing isn't just a race thing. Biden instituted DEI quotas at the FAA in order to recruit workers who were deaf, vision impaired, missing limbs, completely paralyzed, epileptic, people who were severely intellectually disabled, psychiatrically disabled, and dwarfs. This was Biden's FAA just 2 years ago.
We need a diverse group of air traffic controllers to bring distinct perspectives to handle the ever-changing aerospace landscape. I'm calling on students and alumni from HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, and tribal colleges to apply now to become air traffic controllers.
So Fox News, Jesse Waters has a problem with that. Well, it's not just him. Here's that other resident bigot, Laura Ingraham.
The president took a lot of heat today, that's to put it mildly, for bringing up the issue of DEI when, you know, the folks out there were saying, oh, we just need the controller in chief. We need information, not speculation. But he wasn't pulling that from thin air. I want to show everyone what Biden's FAA deputy administrator had to say back in 2023. Watch.
We need a diverse group of air traffic controllers to bring distinct perspectives to handle the ever-changing aerospace landscape. I'm calling on students and alumni from HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, and tribal colleges to apply now. We need a diverse next-generation air traffic workforce.
Laura, I think people today looking at that going, why does that have anything to do with competence to secure our safety in the skies?
Are y'all aware that 93% of all airline pilots in America are white? Yeah, 93%. So check this out. This is not just the issue here. You also have what took place at Rutgers University. We discussed that earlier this week, where there was supposed to be an HBCU conference taking place there, but they canceled that particular conference in response to Donald Trump's DEI orders. And so I'm going to pull this story up here. And so what happened is they had this conference. But as a result, let's see here. Go to my iPad. Give me a second. I want to show this to you because I want you to understand, folks, how far-reaching what's going on here. And so here it is, right here. You had this conference supposed to take place, and Rutgers Center for Minority Serving Institutions said in part, while this setback is, come on, go to my iPad, guys. Thank you. While this setback is disappointing, we have so much more happening at the Rutgers Center for Minority Serving Institutions, and we can't wait to engage with you in the future. Yeah, but you cancel the conference. Now, here's what's also happening. In Indiana, the MAGA Republican in Indiana has chosen not to put funds in the state budget for predominantly black university, Martin University. It was very short-lived. They're the only predominantly black institution in Indiana. They got state funding a couple of years ago, $5 million for the private university. But as this story says here, Republican Governor Mike Braun left the university out of his proposed 2025-2027 budget. And Gregory Porter, a Democrat there, said, I won't mince my words. It's racist. He said, we never saw it coming. Joining us now is North Carolina Congresswoman Alma Adams. Congresswoman, are you still the co-chair of the HBCU caucus in the House?
I am indeed, and we have a lot of work to do, and I agree with the gentleman. It is racist. And it's just so unfortunate. Our HBCUs, everybody is kind of up in arms now. Our chancellors, our presidents. What's happening with this president? He's putting our HBCUs in harm's way. Our schools are vital to our communities, and we just need to make sure that people continue to understand that. We're talking about HBCUs who are the engines of opportunity. First-generation students get their shot here at our schools, and we're training the next generation of teachers, doctors, engineers, where the entire communities can be strengthened. And yes, we can do the work in airports and air traffic control and all of that, because our students are competent, they're qualified. And that's what our schools do. We're in a tough spot right now in terms of our schools with this fund, with the freezes that they are put. At least the comments from the president that he's going to freeze them. I don't understand. First of all, laws are not made in the White House. Executive orders are not laws, and so the Congress has already put our budget together. We've already determined where the appropriations would go. The president's responsibility through the various agencies is to do what Congress has set forth. So, everybody's nervous about it, but I do think that while I don't know what the judge is going to do on Tuesday, I think that's when they're going to determine whether or not the freeze is going to go forward, or whether they're going to pull back on it. But certainly it's putting our schools. Everybody is on edge right now. No university should be stuck waiting on Washington to do the right thing. I mean, we're talking about schools that educate nearly 300,000 students a year. We're producing 80% of our judges and black lawyers and doctors and engineers and so forth. So when we invest in HBCUs, we are investing in America, period. Period, dot.
And the thing that I keep saying is that, and I made this point the other night talking to Leslie Baskerville, when I said HBCUs, they're like PWIs in that if you want to go there, you can apply, and so you can go to a Morgan State, a North Carolina A&T, a Howard University, whether you are white, black, Latino, Asian, Native American. They have academic programs. They confer degrees. You have HBCU students who compete against PWIs in robotics competitions, debate competitions, and all sorts of things. But what they're really saying is that if all they see is the B in HBCU, most of these white folks in the Trump administration, they ain't never even been to a HBCU, haven't walked on the campus, haven't talked to anybody, but all they see is black. And what they are doing is, what they're speaking to is, in their minds, they say, oh, black, you're inferior. They're saying also to white women, you're inferior. They're classifying anybody who's not a heterosexual white male, you are inferior. That's what they are driving home with all of these attacks.
And you know what? The president is, he is certainly fueling this fire. And all you have to do is look at the administration that he's putting together. You're exactly right.
Grossly unqualified white people.
That's exactly right. You know, when they talk about we want people who are competent, the majority of the folks that they're looking at, they don't have credentials, they're not qualified, certainly they're not competent. And I just think it's too bad that what Donald Trump is spewing out is filtering all over this country, and people are buying into it, including corporate America. I mean, it's just amazing to me when you talk about the schools and folks pulling back on their programs that provide diversity. All of that is in the Constitution. I mean, diversity is what makes us who we are, makes us great. But I think it's just pretty incredible. And of course, we're looking at beginning of Black History Month. And so he wants to take all of the history out of the school. So I just wonder, are they going to really pass that proclamation? Is he going to sign it? But it's really a slap in the face, considering the contributions to this country that our HBCUs have made, and DEI. I mean, so some people still don't understand. HBCUs were founded for the purpose of educating kids that look like me and you. Because why? We couldn't go anywhere else. Those doors were closed to us. And we were educated during a time in history founded the early 1800s all the way to 1964. So we have been about education, about workforce development, economic growth. We've trained our scientists, business leaders. We have just been about even the national security experts. So it's not about checking a box with us. It's about making sure that our country stays strong in terms of economics, in terms of business, and everything else. So it's not just about keeping the lights on as we're fighting for HBCUs. It's about making sure that our schools not just survive, but that they thrive. And so I'm going to continue to be a champion for our students, for our institutions. And you're right, anyone can attend an HBCU. And my bill, for example, Ignite, it's not even about, it's about dealing with the infrastructure primarily on these campuses that are about 200 years old almost. And so it doesn't matter who goes. If you go to our schools and we can get all of the infrastructure and the things that we need there to make sure that these students do get a good education, that our faculty have a good place and a place to work, then you're going to benefit. And it doesn't matter. You can be white, you can be Hispanic. If you go, you're going to benefit. We're going to see. We already know what our students, what our schools have produced.
And historically, that when it comes to HBCU funding, that's one of the rare areas of bipartisanship that we've seen. But the problem today, Congresswoman, is that you got Republicans, frankly, who don't have any guts. I mean, they are simply kissing the butt of Donald Trump, and they are accepting nearly everything.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, I do believe that because when you look at our schools and where they are located, not all of our schools are located in Democrat districts. So education is not and should not be a partisan issue. But I believe that we're going to put some people, we're going to put them in the spotlight because a lot of these schools exist in the neighborhoods and the communities and the districts that they represent. So we're gonna see. I mean, I've had some folks to talk to me, Republicans who have indicated, I'm going to stick with HBCUs. We're gonna continue to do what we need to do. So we're going to put them to the test, and we'll see.
All right. Congresswoman Alma Adams, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ro. Thank you for all you do, my brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Folks, again, when we talk about, what their strategy is, we see this continuing to play out. Alina Habba, who is an absolute idiot attorney, she got her butt kicked numerous times in court defending Trump. She gave an interview on Fox News where she was talking about competence and how we don't want lazy, incompetent people. Listen to this sheer stupidity.
J.B. Pritzker, Illinois governor, a Democrat, had a stinging statement. All right, I'm going to read it for you and get your response. Donald Trump is unfit to lead during moments of crisis like this. Before victims have been identified, Trump's blaming people with disabilities. He's blaming the U.S. service members in a Black Hawk helicopter. He's blaming hiring programs he can't even name or offer examples of. The buck stops with him. Yet he's failing to demonstrate his role as protector of the American people and head of our government. How would you respond in kind on that, Alina?
Well, we're doing strong and big things and very quickly. So they're trying to get their sea legs on their new narrative against the Trump administration. That's first. We're seeing that. Let me discuss what President Trump said. He said two things that are not to be conflated, which I continuously hear being conflated. One is DEI is a major problem in this country. We had unqualified people hired through these programs, not on merit, but based on your race or checking a box. That is unacceptable. That's one thing he said. Now, what he said about this case was he was going to find out what happened with these planes. This tragedy is absolutely unacceptable. He has no tolerance for irresponsibility. Intelligent people need to be put in these places. We cannot have sloppy, lazy and inappropriate hires because American people are going to suffer and die. And that is a result not of frankly, the last administration's irresponsibility. So the two are getting conflated, and that's part of their narrative. Like I said, I've spoken out against left-wing media's spin ad nauseum, but that's what they like to do. Take one thing that he says over here, what Doge is doing, cleaning up and being responsible with taxpayer dollars, and then take a crisis and make it look like he has no compassion. This is a man whose first bill sitting as the 47th president was the Laken-Riley bill. The Laken-Riley Act was so important to protect our people. And all he's saying is we need the best of the best, and America has the best of the best.
Okay,
on our
and
soil.
we're waiting for answers. Maybe.
Really? Go to my iPad, Anthony. You see this headline in Politico. DEI not to blame in crash, says top Republican overseeing the Federal Aviation Administration. Congressman Sam Graves, the Missouri Republican in charge of overseeing the Federal Aviation Administration in the House, said Friday that diversity initiatives at the agency had nothing to do with a crash between a commercial airplane and an Army helicopter that killed 67 people earlier this week. Nothing. See, Alina Habba sat there and lied. Oh, y'all are conflating. No, we're not conflating. We know exactly what we heard. We heard y'all loud and clear. We heard exactly what y'all had to say in terms of these attacks. We know who these people are. We know what they say. We know what they do. See, they want to play this cute little game. And the cute little game is all about, they don't know what's going on. So here's what's interesting, because I'm very curious, because the Army has now identified 2 of the 3 soldiers involved in the helicopter crash. This is right here from the U.S. Army Public Affairs. Now, the parents of these soldiers did this. So look at this here. There was a 3-person crew that collided. Staff Sergeant Ryan Austin O'Hara of Lilburn, Georgia. Andrew Lloyd Eves of Great Mills, Maryland. The remains have yet to be recovered. Therefore, duty status whereabouts is unknown. Yeah, that's. Here's a photo right here. Show caption. Will do. This is Andrew Lloyd Eves of Great Mills, Maryland. This is Staff Sergeant Ryan Austin O'Hara of Lilburn, Georgia. DEI hires? Really? One of the fathers of these men said they are sick of what is being said about his son. But when you are a blatant racist and you actually do not care, here he is, the father of one of these soldiers who was serving this country. Here it is.
I know they've identified one of the pilots, but if the other pilot was a woman, to me, I can't imagine being the parents of that other pilot if she was a girl, saying that, because she's a woman, she was less capable than the man. I can't imagine the horror that those parents must be going through. I mean, I'm hoping that's not the case. I don't know who the other pilot was, but I know Ryan respected the people that he flew with and trusted them with his life. And, you don't get to do something in the Army unless you're qualified. You have to earn your spot to be moved into the ladder, to be put into that helicopter. They don't just give it to you. You earn it.
As a pilot, you never stop flying. You don't give up on the airplane, and what goes through my mind is I can just see him. I'm not sure if he was pilot flying or he was the pilot not flying on that leg. We trade off. But if he was a pilot flying, he didn't give up all the way to the ground or all the way to the water. He would have been moving those controls and trying to figure out what's going on.
But here you have these 4 white men standing up there: Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Sean Duffy, Pete Hegseth, sitting here race baiting. But I told y'all what they were doing. Their whole goal: how do you push the buttons of white America? Because see, what white America has decided is that all of the problems in America are because of those people, those unqualified people getting our jobs. This is what Van Lathan said on his podcast on this very issue. And I've told y'all to listen to what they're doing so you can understand that this thing is much deeper than DEI, is what I just said. That they are saying to white America, you have not gotten ahead because of them. They have your jobs. They have your houses. They have the life that you should have. It's them, those people, those black people, those brown people. It's all because of them. Roll it.
We say that DEI is the new N-word.
Yeah.
It's not the new N-word. It's worse than the N-word. The term DEI right now has become the worst slur in American history. It's worse than the N-word. I'm not going to go through a whole diatribe about why the N-word is bad historically and what the N-word has meant historically and in the contemporary sense. What I will say is this, is the term DEI or DEI hire is not just being used to undermine the qualifications, the capability, and the readiness of Black people and women and other people in all of these different sectors. It's not just minimizing them. DEI is placing the blame of all of society's ills at the feet of these people.
Mm-hmm.
If a fire happens, it's because of DEI. If a plane crash happens, it's because of DEI. If we lose a battle, it's because of DEI. There is a religious allegiance to the white male orthodoxy that this propping up of this DEI, anti-DEI agenda is beholden to, that is not just dehumanizing, it seeks to set a cultural and intellectual slavery and caste system that is unbeatable by statistic, by example, or by actual happening. The belief that every single thing that goes wrong in American or world society is because white, straight males aren't in charge is a religious endeavor. It takes faith and belief and total capitulation to white supremacy to believe that.
Mm.
That means that it doesn't matter what is happening. If that pilot is Black, we don't even know the particulars here. We don't even know what happened. But before we even get the particulars, before we know who was the air traffic controller, before we know who the pilots were, before we know what happened, 67 people dead, laid at the feet of DEI. That means when any Black person, any woman, any gay person that is walking around society is a walking disaster, a walking cataclysm, a walking accident, a walking vessel of incompetence. There's no way to defeat that if, in fact, that is something that is believed by the most powerful people in this country.
Now, while that is going on, then you have this nonsensical, crazed, deranged, richest person in the world who is literally running the federal government. It was Elon Musk who forced the FAA administrator to resign. That's a fact. We know that as a fact. Forced him to quit. Now, we have stories coming out where the story came out today where Elon Musk forced out a top Treasury official who said that, and this Treasury official was tasked, one of the few people with the passcodes to the accounts that disperse some $6 trillion from the federal government. Elon Musk has been sending his engineers in. They have been locking out government employees from being able to access their accounts. Some of them can only access their email. So you have an unelected individual who is literally doing these things. And here's what's even so crazy hilarious about this. I'm going to pull this up for y'all in a second because this was so amazing. The dude gives Trump $250 million. He rigs the election for Trump. Of course, he is in control of Twitter. So he was driving and pushing all of this right-wing content during the election. But here's what's hilarious. This is what Elon Musk tweeted out himself. This is the critical battle to restore power to the people from the massive unelected bureaucracy. If your elected representatives cannot overcome the bureaucrats who control government, then you live in a bureaucracy, not a democracy. It's called tyranny. But that's literally what he's doing. He is an unelected individual who is not an employee of the federal government, who is literally kicking government workers out, who is accessing sensitive information. Let me say it again. He's accessing sensitive information in the federal government in the Department of Treasury. Joining us now is California Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager-Doe from LA. Glad to have you here, Congresswoman. Republicans are just me see nothing. I don't see anything. I don't know. I mean, for the people who talk about presidential overreach, for the people who talk about checks and balances, they are allowing this thug, this twice impeached, criminally convicted felon con man, Donald Trump, to allow individuals in to have complete run of the federal government. They are firing people. You've got, I just sat here and saw one story where the guy who he made the U.S. attorney in D.C., who defended January 6th defendants, has just fired 30 prosecutors who prosecuted those people. What you have is he's ordered the removal and the firing of FBI 20 field directors. He's firing FBI agents who were just promoted. This is nothing but absolute retribution by this evil man.
Yeah, he is. We have a petty president who has asked every single Republican to bend the knee, and he is the ultimate DEI hire who has put forth so many unqualified, incompetent Looney Tunes before the Senate to be confirmed. And these folks don't know their ass from a hole in the wall. They're getting confirmed. Meanwhile, the names that you don't know, thankfully you are sharing them, people like Russ Vought and, of course, Stephen Miller, are the ones behind the scenes who've actually written these heinous, dangerous plans to kill us, to create anarchy. These folks are, I think, trying to stoke a civil war between Black America and white America. And as you said, blaming every single thing on DEI. I don't think this is really about DEI anymore. I think this is about the resegregation of America.
Yep.
And we have to just stand firm. We have to call it out. And we have to kind of punch back, because it is evident that even when they get knocked down, they got knocked down with these temporary orders coming from the judges about the funding freezes, about the birthright citizenship. But he doesn't want Congress to legislate. So now we have to legislate through litigation.
Yep. Because
he's trying to usurp the power of Congress. Our power is the power of the purse. So this is what's so interesting, Roland. And first, hello, how are you? So good to see you and to be on your show. But he has the Supreme Court, this corrosive, corrupted court. He has the Senate and he has Congress, and he don't even trust them, okay? All these executive orders are because he don't even trust the Republicans, who he brought to Doral, Florida to bend the knee to him. And it was evident that he didn't like what he was hearing from them when he was telling them all of his bidding that they needed to do. So he's continuing to run roughshod over the American people.
I mean, I'm sitting here pulling up, a reporter who covers a lot of this stuff. He is Kyle Griffin. He's with MSNBC. And go to it. So this was 26 minutes ago. Ed Martin, interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin just announced the dismissal of roughly 30 federal prosecutors who worked on Capitol riot cases in the D.C. office over the past 4 years. Notifications went out at about 5 p.m. on Friday. Also, the CDC is scrubbing a swath of HIV-related content from the agency's website as a part of Trump's broader effort to wipe out DEI initiatives across the federal government. At one point, the CDC's main HIV page was down temporarily. It's unclear how HIV content is DEI content. So you got that going. And then, of course, this was 3 hours ago, Donald Trump is escalating his purge at the FBI. David Sundberg, the assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, has been notified that he'll lose his job. Sundberg headed the office as his agents participated in the Trump investigation. And so what he's doing is also, this was another post, several top FBI executives promoted by ex-director Christopher Wray, including officials who oversee the Bureau's criminal and cyber investigations, have been told to resign or retire and that they'll be demoted or reassigned if they don't leave. The senior officials are career civil servants, meaning they can't be fired without cause. And so they are just wreaking havoc. I saw another post that they are removing federal prosecutors from drug cases in order for them to prosecute illegal immigration cases.
It's a hot mess. I do not know if that is a technical term, but that is what is going on. So as you know, in Project 2025, he said all of this was going to happen. He's now trying to reclassify all of these federal workers. Of course, we know many federal workers are African American. I've talked to some and they've said, hell no, I'm not going to go. He's going to have to come after me. I'm not leaving. It took me so long to get this job and to get the qualifications and the experience and the education that I needed to get it. I'm not leaving just because this orange man is trying to threaten me. But he is trying to clean house and replace civil servants with loyalists.
Actually, I got it corrected. 47 prosecutors.
Well, he's already said he's going to clean house with DOJ.
He's right. What he's doing is anybody who was involved in investigating him, he's firing. FBI agents, prosecutors, anybody.
And he wants, there was a thing I was reading about CBS. He actually wants all of the documents, all of the materials, all of the evidence that had to do with any of his cases, he wants to see. So, I mean, this is a petty president who has gone rogue, and it is all about revenge for the second term. Now, I don't know about you, but where I live, eggs are $15, and he has not done anything to bring down the cost of eggs.
Oh, wait a minute.
So,
he came out today and talked about these tariffs. Go to my iPad. Auto stocks, look what happened here. Also, it was interesting is Eric Erickson, who is a big-time conservative, who has been supporting Donald Trump, who criticized him the first time, but voted for him and voted for him the second time. And he's always, he posted this: "Thank you, Donald Trump, for announcing tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Really helped my 401k today. Hopefully you're just threatening and not actually doing." So, and I'm like, Eric, you effed around and found out. You supported that man, you voted for that man, and now your 401k is in the dumpsters because of what he did.
And people don't understand. Tariffs are a two-way street. It's not just the United States saying this is what I'm going to do. China has leverage over us. They have a lot of our debt. Mexico is a major trading partner, as is Canada. So we're going to try these tariffs. They're going to come after us. Now, while you're doing that, of course, the backdrop is going after every single immigrant or person that you deemed to be an immigrant, right? So now we're seeing the Cops Bad Boys TV show playing out in real time using military aircraft because he thinks this life is reality TV. And I'm going to tell you, Roland, that means strawberries are going to be costing $40. Okay?
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm just seeing here, he was, hold on. The media asked Donald Trump how his tariffs fits into his plan to lower costs. Listen to what he actually said. All y'all idiots who were like, oh, yeah, Trump is going to bring prices down. He lied to you. Watch.
The European Union has treated us so terribly.
You promised Americans to try to reduce costs, and so many of the products that would be tariffed when they come into the country, the outgoing country is not paying the tariff. The buyers in the United States pay that, and then that's passed on to consumers in most instances.
Sometimes.
How would you expect to have prices come down if you have such a broad plan for tariffs? And what do you say to the voters who want to see you reduce everyday costs?
Well, let me just tell you that I got elected for a lot of reasons. Number one was the border. Number two was inflation, because I had almost no inflation. And yet I charged hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs to countries. And think of it, I had almost no inflation and I took in $600 billion of money from other countries. And tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. They cause big success. So we're going to have great success. There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that. I had that when I negotiated some of the good deals for the farmers. And unfortunately, those deals have been led astray by Biden and his people because they didn't enforce the deals.
It's going to be some short term. I'm like, okay, believe that?
No, boo. No, boo. It is not going to be short term. First of all, I don't understand why he continues to talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is no longer president. I swear Donald Trump has such penis envy when it comes to Joe Biden. But the reality is, when you're talking about immigration, you're actually talking about supply and demand. You need more people coming into your country because the demand is greater than the supply. Immigration is about competition and it is about economic strength. So he wants to take away all of our assets, a lot of our assets, a lot of our competitive edge by doing this crazy crackdown on immigration, which is really about xenophobia. So we don't have Bob the Builders anymore, okay? Half of Los Angeles burned up in both of these fires. If we're talking about a massive rebuild, who will be building those homes, Roland? Who will be rebuilding those businesses? Because he's trying to get rid of all of the workers, all of the support that this state really relies on to make us the fifth largest economic capital in the world.
Well, you're gonna love this. Let me pull it up my iPad. So
you're gonna make me start day drinking.
So well, for me, thank goodness I've never drank in my life. So thank goodness. But here's what's absolutely just what you were talking about. We already see the impact when it comes to crops. So, but before I was coming in, I came in, and so I've got my. I'm trying to sit here and do my meal plan. So this is a black-owned protein company. I'm gonna show the back because they ain't advertising, so they ain't sending us a check.
Okay.
So, but
no
it's a black-owned protein shake company. And what's crazy is, so I said, all right, I got to eat every 3 hours, so let me go to the CVS across the street. Let me grab me a banana. I go in, none. I go to the 7-Eleven, that's a block over, nothing there. I go to another store, another there. I finally find a smoothie place. They have 5 left. The whole thing is empty. And I said point blank, I said, y'all better get used to it. Y'all better get used to these empty baskets, because who y'all think is going to be out there picking stuff?
Exactly.
And prices going to jump up. Go ahead.
100%. So we did a press conference today to talk about food access because of the funding freeze. Half the folks in our community are using WIC. The man is trying to do this funding freeze that would impact SNAP, food stamps, a lot of white folks on food stamps, okay? It would actually stop funding for baby formula. So now why are you going to take it out on the babies? So we had a farmer come And I have been complaining about $15 eggs because that is too expensive for me. And when I go to the grocery store, they have a couple of baskets of $15 eggs, and then there's only maybe 2 or 3 cartons, and the rest is barren. And the farmer was saying, yes, when you cut money to USDA, when you cut money to federal programs, when you don't have inspections for some of these massive farms, then you have all these recalls. When you have recalls, that means they have to take the food off the shelves. So then you have to rely on the small farmers to supplement the food that you can't get at the grocery store. And the small farmers also rely heavily on federal funds. So the small farmers can't deliver in absence of the large companies that you are so used to seeing when you go to the grocery store, because everyone has been impacted by this president, by his administration, and by these funding freezes. People say, oh, no, government is bad. I'm telling you, boo, you need federal government in every single thing that you do. Just because you don't see it does not mean that the federal government is not somehow funding how you are able to live your life.
Well, folks, y'all gonna get used to seeing a whole lot of this right here, and that is empty baskets and shells over the next 4 years. Congresswoman, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, gonna go to a break. We go a quick break. We come back. I'm gonna chat with my panel. I know they cannot wait to chat. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Democracy in the United States is under siege. On this list of bad actors, it's easy to point out the Donald Trumps, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, or even the United States Supreme Court as the primary villains. But as David Pepper, author, scholar, and former politician himself says, there's another factor that trumps them all and resides much closer to many of our homes. His book is Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines.
So these state houses get hijacked by the far right, then they gerrymander, they suppress the opposition, and that allows them to legislate in a way that doesn't reflect the people of that state.
David Pepper joins us on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? My name is Mark Curry, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Deep into it, like pasteurized milk without the 2%. We getting deep. You want to turn that shit off? We're doing the interview, motherfucker.
Now, see, here, we told y'all what was going to happen. But a whole bunch of these Trump people effed around and found out. And now they're crying. Here's this white woman in North Carolina.
Yeah, we voted for Trump because he promised while he was campaigning like a million times that when he got into office, he was going to bring down prices, bring down grocery prices. The inflation has been high ever since COVID, and he promised he would bring that down, but it's obvious to me now that that was not true. Egg prices have skyrocketed. The bird flu is killing all the birds, and he doesn't seem to be doing anything about that. He's stopping disease communications from the disease centers in America, pulled us out of the WHO. Like, how does that help anything? And yeah, all he's been doing is taking away rights and freedoms, or trying to. He's not doing anything about the economy. So, yeah, we totally regret our vote at this point. We've had a really tough time here in North Carolina. Half of my house got washed away in Hurricane Helene, and I applied for FEMA assistance, and we got approved. But now Trump is canceling FEMA and emergency assistance to people. He's also canceled Medicaid for my children. I know they said they put a halt on his freezing of the funds, but the Medicaid portal is still not working, so we can't access anything for our children's health insurance.
Whatever. Panel, Michael Imhotep, hosts African History Network show out of Detroit. Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. Derek Jackson, Georgia State Representative out of Atlanta. Derek, your state went for Donald Trump, and I don't want to hear nothing. Again, for that woman right there, all I have for you is Scarface's No Tears.
Listen, Roland, I don't think we can say we told you so. When you think about what he said while he was campaigning, he is fulfilling every promise, and that was outlined in Project 2025. We are not surprised. I just want to make 2 points, Roland, if I could. When you started off talking about the HBCU funding, and people don't understand, right? That B in there stands for black. We get that. But when you think about the number of folks that walk through the doors of HBCUs, and then Pell Grant funding, which will also be, they're aiming to remove Pell Grants. And so I had to do some math here and look at the data, because on the Roland Martin show, we talk about facts and figures and data. 72% Black students get Pell Grants. 51% Indian students get Pell Grants. 48% Hispanic students and Latino students get Pell Grants. 36% Asian students get Pell Grants. 34% white students get Pell Grants. And so while he's going after the HBCU, they're going to do this in the most clever way, because not all actions, Roland, as you well know, are done through legislative means. All he has to do as the president, call up the Speaker of the House and simply instruct the Speaker to say, remove all funding for Pell Grants. That doesn't require a legislative action. That doesn't require an executive order. That doesn't require a memo. All he has to do is call up the Speaker of the House and say, remove all Pell Grants funding. The second and my last point, Roland, if I could, when you think about this whole thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and as a retired military officer, and in the 18 months of my 22 years, I was an air traffic controller. And it frustrated the hell out of me when I watched this individual said what he stated. At the time he stated, not only it was incredulous, not only it was disgusting and despicable. When you think about the rigorous process that air traffic controllers have to go through, I just want to let your audience know, air traffic controllers, it's only 73% that are white. Black air traffic controllers is 9%. First
of all, not only 73%. I mean, that's a huge number. But again, we understand what their game is. But here's the reality and we kept saying it over and over again, Michael. Go to my iPad. This is from CNN. Quote, this is exactly the work we set out to do. Paul Dans, who oversaw Project 2025 at the Conservative Heritage Foundation, told CNN in an interview Wednesday, it's still in the early first stages of bearing fruit, and we wanted to make sure the president was ready to hit the ground running on day one. The rapidity and the depth of what they rolled out this quickly is a testament to the work done in Project 2025 and other presidential transition projects. We warn people on this show.
Yeah.
I remember the reporter from Axios reported in the first year of the Biden administration, Republicans were planning this. In the first
Jonathan
year.
Swan.
That was, so for 3 years, and folk were just sitting here, for 4 years. Here you go. People, and then when they, I've never heard of it, I don't want to read it, I have no idea. They were lying, and these idiots in the media went, well, Trump says that's not his plan. He's got Agenda 47, which was the same thing. And so now these people realize what they're doing, and so they want the chaos, and you got it.
So you're talking about Jonathan Swan. That was July 2022, Axios.com. And that was when I first found out about the plan for Schedule F employees to reclassify at least about 50,000 employees as Schedule F, fire them and replace them with Trump loyalists. And it's important for people to understand, Donald Trump in 2020 signed an executive order to reclassify some federal employees as Schedule F, but he did not have the database at the time to replace them. President Joe Biden, when he became president in 2021, he rescinded that executive order. Trump has put it back in place now, and they have the database. They have the litmus test. They've been planning 3.5 years. And it's important for people to understand. We've talked about this before on the show, Roland. I've been on virtual town halls, and there was a town hall meeting that the AKA grad chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha grad chapter, organized here in Detroit, warning the Black community about Project 2025. The full name of it is Mandate for Leadership: The Conservative Promise, Project 2025. From the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation has been putting out their policy playbook called Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, each election cycle going back to 1981 under the Reagan administration. They've been doing this over 40 years. And when you research this, in Reagan's first term, they got 60% of their policy recommendations put in place in Reagan's first term. In the first year of the first Trump administration in 2017, they got 64% of about 334 policy recommendations put in place. One of those was withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accord. One of the things that they want to do is to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare. We know Trump tried through Republicans in the legislative branch of government tried to do that at least 60 times. So this is real. Okay, we warn people. And you don't put a plan, a 922-page plan, you don't sit and write it if you don't plan to implement it. 140 people from the first Trump administration were involved in writing it, and now he's nominated people like Russell Vought, who's known as the architect of Project 2020.
So here's the thing here's the thing here, Matt, that people need to understand. It's going to impact a lot of Black people. They don't care. You talk about programs, about cutting off checks, you name it. And so they want this chaos. And again, for the people, for the Black people who are out there, a lot of these YouTube folks who are running their mouths, okay, yeah, that's what y'all want? You got it for 4 years. Go ahead, Matt.
The cruelty is the point. The cruelty is the point. It's not a byproduct. It is the express what they're seeking, the express consequence of these policies. And on top of that, this is so disingenuous to me. I absolutely abhor this kind of thing, right? At least be honest and say, we knew he was a known quantity. We voted for him as a known quantity. We, suspected we weren't going to get 100% of what we wanted, but we voted for him and we knew this was coming down the pike. This smells like people are trying to not clout chase, but trying to get, their neighbors to say, hey, I'm actually a good person. Forgive me. I thought he was going to do this one thing I voted on. And look, here's the thing. We know people aren't single issue voters. Trump has a policy, or at least has a position on most things that are going to affect people's lives. Right. So if you vote for him, you know what he's going to do. This is dishonest to me. And this is people I think just not owning up to the fact that they either voted along the whiteness lines or they voted along some other lines from this candidate who was talking about the things he said he was going to do from day one. What did he say, tongue in cheek, months ago? Day one, I will be a dictator. And what are we seeing? Dictatorial actions. We are literally seeing the rounding up of immigrants in our country. We're seeing the fomenting of, us versus them, even more so than it was in his prior term. And what you're seeing is they are continuing to push the bounds of constitutionality. I mean, when you have a federal judge saying this is blatantly unconstitutional, right, and asking an assistant U.S. attorney if he stands by the argument that this is truly a constitutional position and he has to hem and haw because it's ideological and not, moral or legally based in any kind of merit, you know that we are in bizarro world, and anybody who voted for Donald Trump voted with this intent to happen, not because they thought it wasn't going to happen, but instead they knew it would and voted in spite of that. So I think this is disingenuous. And when I see people who I know voted for Trump saying this kind of thing, I'm like, keep it, because we know it isn't honest and we know it's not true.
Well, folks need to recognize this was going on, and you talk about cruelty is the point. That's exactly what it is. When we come back, we're going to talk to some disabled activists. Did y'all hear the nastiness of this man and how he just demeaned and ridiculed the disabled? It wasn't astonishing because we all know he's an idiot. And he has no empathy. He is a sick and demented man. We'll talk to them when we come back on the other side. Don't forget, support the work that we do, folks. Listen, we're talking about stuff other people are scared of. Your support is critical to our success. If you want to give via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. We have it right here. It's also on the screen, the Stripe QR code. I think the bug was on the screen. So check that out. Then, of course, if you want to send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, the necessity of believing in things you can't see. It's called faith. It comes in all shapes and sizes, and it's powerful. And it's a big part of being able to live a balanced life.
The valley I experienced being a cancer survivor was one where my footing was completely unstable. I had no idea what to do. And in that instance of not knowing what to do, I had to rely on faith.
That's all next on A Balanced Life, only on Black Star Network.
This is Tamala Mann.
And this is David Mann. And you're watching Roland Martin
Unfiltered.
Folks, at that pathetic news conference yesterday, some of you might recall the shameful and despicable things that Donald Trump said about disabled Americans who work for the Federal Aviation Administration. Listen to this pathetic man.
The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with
severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target, and you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so.
Interesting. Interesting. His transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, you know, the guy who used to be on Fox News, who also was on a reality show. This is him praising Trump. Just listen to this.
When we deal with safety, we can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members. And I think you make a really important point on that, Mr. President. That is the motto of your presidency, the best and the brightest, the most intelligent coming into these spaces.
He mentioned family members. That's quite interesting, Sean, because Sean Duffy is married to Fox News host Rachel Campos Duffy. Are y'all aware that Sean Duffy and Rachel Campos, please show the video. Show it, come on, come on. This is their daughter, born with Down syndrome. So Sean Duffy stood knowing for, he is the father, no, leave it up. He is the father of a child with Down syndrome, and this asshole stood there as Donald Trump maligned the disabled and then praised him for his leadership. And here's his hateful wife, who is one of the dumbest people I've ever seen. Her takes on Fox News are atrocious. Here's her on Fox News on World Down Syndrome Day.
Today is World Down Syndrome Day, and it is extremely special to our Fox and Friends family. Our very own Rachel Campos Duffy's daughter was born with Down syndrome in 2019. Rachel and her gorgeous daughter, Valentina, join us now. Good morning.
Say hi,
sweet pea. How are you? How are you doing? You're on national television. Can you wave and say hi?
Say hi.
Hey, Rachel, tell me why this day is so important to you.
Well, I think it's really important to raise awareness because actually a lot of women get this diagnosis, a lot of them, and they will fearful. There's a lot of fear around it. And even the medical community can make people scared and say, well, you have options. And I think when people realize that they're just like any other child, they have a few little challenges, sometimes in medical, like some of them are prone to heart conditions, maybe some thyroid stuff, but all of that is very treatable.
Love it.
And she is as lovely, as precious, as joyful as any other child. And in fact, I would say,
oh, she is lovely and precious, and they have a few problems. Brian Krasenstein, who is a journalist, posted this on yesterday, fact-checking the lies. First of all, Caitlin Collins of CNN also, her video that was on here said that disabled workers do not direct air traffic, but do play an essential role in the FAA. And so she did about a 5-minute piece. But Brian Krasenstein laid out here. One, it says, as a matter of policy, as identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring, the FAA's website states that hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism are all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country. That's what Trump said. Fact, this policy has been in place since at least 2013 under the Obama administration and remained unchanged throughout Trump's first term. Number two, Trump falsely claimed the FAA hires visually and hearing impaired air traffic controllers. This is completely false. There's no evidence that the FAA hires individuals with vision or hearing impairments as air traffic controllers. Oh, by the way, the FAA employs 43,000 people, y'all. And only 30% of the 43,000 people are air traffic controllers. But this is what happens when you stand before the public and lie. Zabora Glider is a DEI consultant and employment specialist, and Dara Baldwin is a disability justice activist and scholar. She's the author of the book, To Be a Problem, A Black Woman's Survival in the Racist Disability Rights Movement. Glad to have both of you here. Let me start with you, Zabor. When you heard that wretched man say those despicable things about the disabled, how did you feel?
I was instantly just disappointed that a person that is our president is, how can you have those kind of feelings about individuals that, one, you don't know? Clearly, you've never had any interactions with deaf or hard of hearing or disabled individuals to think so lowly of them. And to know how our education system is, how our criminal justice system is, it explains it when the leader of this country is just throwing out words and phrases that just don't make sense, that are not, they're not accurate. They have no facts. He didn't do any research prior to. And for you to assume that these individuals with disabilities, if they are in those positions, are unable to do the job, lets me know that you just, all the people you've hired have no experience, haven't did anything. And so you think they're qualified, but you think a person with a disability isn't. It just shows a lot of ignorance, and I just didn't understand. I was so angry.
Dara.
Same here. Thank you for having me on. First, I want to give my condolences to the people who have lost their families and our community, as I live here in Washington, D.C., D.C. statehood. Same thing. I was, first of all, I was not surprised because, unfortunately, this man did this in his first run in 2015 when he ran, and he was despicable towards people with disabilities then. He has people with disabilities in his family, as in your intro where you show, right? Even the secretary has someone in his family, as they say for us, all skinfolk and kinfolk. Well, right, people who have family members with disabilities don't really respect that. And I didn't expect anything more from him, but I was outraged. And I was appalled by it. The community is appalled by it. Not only that, he's coming from a space of ignorance, but also a space of eugenics, horrible. Over centuries, eugenics has been used to discount disabled folks, and racism, especially like Black and brown folks with disabilities. And he's not coming from a space of intelligence, which these are not policies. I know people have been talking about policies from 2013. Let us be clear. These are statutes. people with disabilities are covered under our federal laws. The Rehab Act of 1973, it is 51 years old, has said that any program receiving federal funds must protect the civil rights of disabled people, must hire them, must include them in programs. And then in 1990, only 34 years ago, we passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Article 1, the first article in that says employment. And so this community is not only protected by civil rights, it's also protected by people who believe in diversity and inclusion. And what he said yesterday, we know he is not that person, and we know that this administration is not that. And so I was appalled by what he said, but I'm also not giving up on the fact that disabled people will be employed and will be a part of the federal system.
And for the folks who are watching, I've said this over and over again, the entire disabled community, I know y'all already know this, but the entire disabled community, especially you non-black disabled people, should always be thanking black people because of the American Disabilities Act. That's a provision of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So without the Civil Rights Act, ain't no 1996 American Disabilities Act. And so there's always important distinction because I'm always making it clear that the stuff that we fought for made other folk be able to get rights as well. Zabor, again, to have him just lie, he literally gave the impression that all of those things that he said, that we've got blind, incapacitated, paralyzed folk, sitting there watching a monitor and then, covering flights. And then on those idiots on the Fox News, those racists over there, they played the video of the brother of the FAA encouraging African-American HBCU graduates, Hispanic serving institutions to apply to the FAA. Oh my God, it's like our standards are being lowered. I mean, what they're doing is they absolutely are creating this whole notion that the only people who should work in America are active, fully functioning, white, heterosexual men. That's just what they're saying. They are hell-bent on attacking everybody that's not white, heterosexual, and male.
No, for sure. You can see it's just people have such an ableist thought. Like they feel that these disabled individuals are not able-bodied. I have been an employment specialist for the last 15 years. When I say I've got people jobs from the dishwasher to the stocker to the chemical engineer, and they have been deaf, they have been hard of hearing, they have been deaf-blind, they have been having co-disabilities and dual disabilities, and to have that thought process that these individuals couldn't do those jobs. First of all, there was no proof that even said that it was an individual with a disability in that position. Second of all, when you think of the intersectionality that these individuals of color are facing, not only are they facing ableism and autism and racism, you know what I mean? But you are discrediting these individuals, you are dehumanizing these individuals. And on the flip side, you are saying, hey, I want them to be able to work and I want to have a merit-based program. And I think that everybody should be hardworking and DEI is the problem. And we need to go back to those regular American values that was a merit-based system. But these individuals want to go to work. You're reducing their funding with vocational rehab. You are impacting these individuals to be able to have interpreters and CART services, which are like real-time captioning services. The other week when they first did those first portion of the DEI rollbacks, you saw a lot of companies saying they wasn't going to provide interpreters, and deaf people everywhere were so upset because how can you say you're not going to provide interpreters when the Americans with Disabilities Act require you to provide those accommodations? It says a reasonable accommodation. These individuals, maybe I wear hearing aid and with my hearing aid, I have hearing that could allow me to be an air traffic controller. For you to just create a space where people are able to have such low expectations and think that our individuals are less than human, I have a deaf brother. That is just unacceptable to me.
When Zabor just made the point about interpreters, I mean, they've literally complained, Dara, about sign language folk. I'm like, who the hell complains about folk doing sign language?
They have been complaining about having sign language interpreters in emergency briefings. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm in DC right now at Howard. But I remember during Hurricane Harvey when those systems were awful. There were no interpreters. I was sitting at home, and you could see on Facebook, because that is a big area where there are groups for emergency briefings. We've had fires. We've had this plane crash. You don't know who are in these situations. And so to say that you want to take interpreters off live broadcasting is crazy. How are our individuals supposed to live independent lives outside of having someone do something for them and be able to have sustainable lives if you're taking all of the accommodations that make their lives able to move forward? They're not asking you for interpreters every day. They're saying, hey, I want to go to work. Can I get an interpreter for an interview? These companies, these businesses, these hospitals, these education systems already are not providing these accommodations. So you not only make it harder.
Dara?
Yes, no, completely, sis. You are right. And it is back to what I said. This is about eugenics, about having people who you think should be in the system should be here. The sister talked about the Americans with Disabilities Act. In this country, many people don't even know what it is. They don't look at it. And Title I is employment. And we are looking at someone who is setting a bar that says this community should not be involved. They should not be there. They should not be heard. Many years ago, we had what was called the ugly laws. I talk about this in my book. If you don't know what they are, they started in this country. And what it says is if you had a disability, you were not allowed in public spaces. Listen to what I said, public spaces. You couldn't go to church, you couldn't go to school. And so that is why people feel that disabled folks shouldn't be there. They're not allowed to be here, because then we had the racist and ableist New Deal from FDR that said, oh, you know what? Instead of keeping those people at home, let's institutionalize them. So then we put them in institutions. So our society is not used to seeing and being and engaging with disabled folks. And we changed that. And as you said, right, the civil rights law didn't cover everyone, so then we went and we did the disabled. But let us remember, in 1976, we did IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, because what also was said yesterday is that we need brilliant people to work, as if disabled people aren't brilliant. Let me be very clear to you. Because of IDEA, we have children and students who go to school, who go all the way through high school, who have gone to college, who get master's degrees, who are doctors and lawyers and are doing PhDs and are in the community. Disabled folks are brilliant as well. And so that was brought up too. And the fact that you think that disabled people can't be on this or cannot do the same work as other people is the problem. And it's about racism, and it's about ableism. And ableism is a part of racism. And specifically for Black and brown and indigenous disabled people who are also multi-marginalized, right? They are also LGBTQ. They are also people who are immigrants. Disabled people are getting hit left and right here with this administration over all of these things and these issues. And so that's what I thought about what he said. And what is going on here is that the continuation of the ugly laws from the 1800s, and those laws went all around the world. In Eastern Europe, they still exist. When people were leaving Ukraine, we told them go west. Do not go east. You cannot be disabled and be in places like Belarus or Russia. They will put you in an institution. So those things and those feelings, that ghost of you don't belong in the community still exists. And that is why that press conference happened, and that people are still ableist in this country and believe that people with disabilities don't belong sitting and working next to you.
Questions from our panel. I'll start with you, Matt.
Well, thank both of you for sharing your insight. I was thinking, frankly, in 1939, I know Hitler started the euthanasia program, and the first group of people that he rounded up were those who were differently able. So my question for you is, what are your immediate fears just from a safety perspective? Because what really concerns me about this rhetoric is exactly the kind of rhetoric that we're going to see turn into assaults on people, physical violence. What are your concerns in that respect, and what do people need to keep their eye on to make sure we don't slide into that soon? For either of you.
I'll take it first. And we use the term disabled, not differently able, just so you know there's nothing wrong with being disabled, nor that term. So let's use that language. But you are right. And eugenics actually started way before Hitler in 1939. Eugenics been around since the 1800s. And we have always been concerned. When the hate crimes bill was signed in 2009, it was the disability community who had to fight to make sure disability language was in there. And if you look at the DOJ data, those who are disabled, there are more hate crimes against the disabled and against those who are disabled and something else, LGBTQ, right, disabled and immigrants. And so, yes, we are concerned about that. And just like with the information that is going out in the community to protect those who are immigrants, we ask you to work with your disabled organizations and assist and look at the information they're giving out. It's the same thing. Yes, we are concerned about people getting involved in being in violence towards them, not working with them when they are customers in your store. We have seen people who have turned them away and said, we won't, serve you in this restaurant. We have seen people who literally spit, who hit, who harm disabled people. And so there are also classes you can take and training you can take, just like we learn how to protect our immigrant community. We have those, and we help people to say, listen, we're going to help out. We're not going to allow this to happen. And finally, what I'll say here in D.C., for D.C. statehood, we are getting together because this person is in our backyard. And we are asking our neighbors to be in solidarity and resist. And so part of that resistance is this. It's a protection of those communities that are protected by civil rights laws in this country.
Derek.
Yeah, my question is almost similar, being that, unfortunately, those protections at the federal level are being removed. The DOJ won't be there to assist those who need those protections. What would you advise someone such as myself as a state legislator? What can we do at the state level, being that there's a significant amount of changes happening at the federal level?
I think that just ensuring that you are making sure your policies are in alignment with keeping those rights in your state. For example, we are heading to the 2026-2027 budget. Do we have vocational rehab in your budget? How are we doing with making sure that accommodations and the technology that may be needed for those things are in your budget? Or what are we doing when it comes to work opportunity tax credits and other incentives to give people that are willing to hire individuals with disabilities the opportunities? Also, in thinking about the RFK Jr.'s confirmation, are you encouraging individuals to call in to his confirmation hearing? Because those health concerns are very real and very there. When we think of insurance and accessibility and wheelchair and medication, every aspect of policy impacts a disabled individual's lives, from their funds to their medication. So I think that just being aware that each one of your policies is a disabled policy.
Michael.
I totally agree. And I'll just add this.
Go ahead.
As a state legislator, you can hire disabled people to be on your staff so that people see that you are actually invested in hiring disabled people. And then those disabled people can be hired by other state legislators who work in your state house.
Michael.
All right, sisters. When we talk about the disabled community, a lot of times we don't consider how many African Americans are part of the disabled community. Can you let us know, number one, how many African Americans are classified as having a disability? And then when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI doesn't just deal with race. it also, one of the things it also deals with are disabilities. And I was just wondering, if somebody is African American and has a disability, do they somehow get counted twice in DEI numbers? Can anybody give any insight into that? Like when it comes to somebody having a job and it classified, you see information saying only 4% of African Americans got diversity, equity, and inclusion jobs. There's an article from Black Enterprise that talks about that.
Well, a lot of the time, identifying those individuals, a lot of time people of color are often misdiagnosed. And it starts with the education system. So there are numbers from the education system that states, how many individuals of color may have disabilities in those IEP systems. However, it's very difficult to really identify. A lot of the time, our kids are left behind. So we're not, a lot of time our community is not willing to say our children have a disability because they're like, my kid's not crazy. It's so much stigma when it comes to African Americans and mental health. And then when you have situations like a president that is saying, hey, these individuals are not, they can't do these kind of jobs. I would also say with the work opportunity tax credit, it allows individuals that are returning citizens. So if you came out of the prison system, it allows individuals that receive any kind of state benefits like SNAP and WIC and Social Security benefits or vocational rehabilitation services. So when it comes to the numbers of individuals with disabilities, you're kind of dependent on who's reporting it. And a lot of time, especially in the deaf and the hard of hearing community, a lot of times those individuals are kind of hidden at home. So you don't always have numbers that are targeted or representative of what the population actually is.
Yes, and also when it comes to BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, again, according to the ADA Title I, you do not have to disclose your disability. So you might not be counted in an employer's numbers of I have 16 disabled people or whatever the percentage is. We also get numbers from the census, which is also, so when people say there's so many people with disabilities in the country, I always say that is only those people who disclose, right? Those people who fill out the census and say that. There are also people who may have episodic disabilities like HIV and AIDS or multiple sclerosis. And at the time they fill out the census form, they're not an episode. And so they'll say, no, I don't have a disability. But actually they do. So our numbers are skewed. But to answer your question also about can an employee counted as both, they can. And we encourage them to look at that and say, as I call it, multi-marginalizations, that people who live in this country, you can have a transgender Black woman who's disabled, formerly incarcerated, and an immigrant. And that person should be hired, and this should be part of DEI, because those are the kind of people you want to be working in your systems and working with your community, because that's who's out in the community. But when it comes to statistics, the numbers are really difficult to grasp. Some people say 1 in 4 people in America, 1 in 4 Black people in America have disabilities. And we always say also, as it was said, they're not telling you the numbers. And if you really do statistics, usually they'll tell you double it. When it says unemployment for disabled folks, that's a white person's number. We say double it for Black folks, triple it for indigenous, right? And so we look at those numbers in a very skewed way. Because we know our community is not always included in that capturing of statistical analysis.
All right, then. I certainly appreciate Dara. Thank you so much, Zabora, both of you, for the work that you do in shedding light on this issue. A lot of work to do as we deal with that nutcase 2 blocks from our studio. Thanks a lot.
Peace and blessings.
Thank you.
All right, folks, when we come back, how hypocritical is Fox News? Wait till we tell you what these idiots did after getting busted for supporting DEI. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to use Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. Here it is right here. You can, of course, just point your phone to it. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com to check it out. Also, of course, you want to send your check and money, order P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be right back.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Next on Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, women of color are starting 90% of the businesses in this country. That's the good news. The bad news, as a rule, we're not making nearly as much as everyone else. But joining us on the next Get Wealthy episode is Betty Hines. She's a business strategist, and she's showing women how to elevate other women.
I don't like to say this openly, but we're getting better at it. Women struggle with collaborating with each other. And for that reason, one of the things that I demonstrate in the sessions that I have is that you can go further together if you collaborate.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
A lot of folks have been talking about how underwhelming the Democrat response has been to Donald Trump and his idiot policies so far. The folks who have frankly been speaking the most have really been progressive media outlets and influencers who have been trying to do all they can to educate the folks on what's going on. One of the folks who's doing that is Brian Tyler Cohen. He joins us right now. Brian, glad to have you on the show, man. You know, it is amazing to me. I think about even just yesterday, the idiotic things that were said, the lies that were said, just the falsehoods, the lawlessness, and when you look at Democrats in the House, in the Senate, when you look at the DNC, when you look at all these other entities, it's sort of like we don't know what to say or do. We just don't know. It is amazing how feckless they've been.
I think there's this overarching sentiment that, okay, Donald Trump won the last election, and so we have some mandate to now tack right or work together with Republicans, or that our messaging all has to be thrown out the window and we have to instead go completely in the opposite direction. I think that is a misread of the situation. I think that we are now already just a little over a week in an era of complete lawlessness and dysfunction and chaos, all of it purposeful, by the way. None of this is happening in a vacuum. This is all by design. And I think what we need right now, very clearly, and we're seeing this in the independent media space, but not much elsewhere beyond that, is people who are going to stand their ground, fight back, and actually react to this moment with the urgency that it deserves.
But what's also crazy about that, these folks, they won't even come on most of our shows. I mean, luckily, I've got the cell phone number to nearly every member of the Congressional Black Caucus. I can hit people direct. But it is amazing how, again, they will kill themselves to go run to CNN and MSNBC, and they're just continuing this continuation of ignoring independent media, which is where people are getting their information from a lot faster, quicker, and more decisive.
Yeah, we are in desperate need of a culture change as it relates to our messaging distribution. So for so long, Democrats have just relied on legacy media as our message distribution system. Meanwhile, 10 years ago, the Republicans recognized that legacy media, CNN, ABC, CNN, CBS, the whole gamut of legacy media, Washington Post, New York Times, they weren't going to play ball with them. And so because those outlets were perceived as liberal media, they needed to create their own conservative media. So they did that. And so we're left with the Ben Shapiro's and Megyn Kelly's and Dan Bongino's, Daily Wire, InfoWars, the whole thing, OAN, Fox News, Newsmax. So they have all of these outlets that are avowed Republican propaganda arms. And yet what we're left with is legacy media that actually bends over backwards to prove that it's not liberal. And so if you ever wanted to see the asymmetry at play, it is a loud and proud, shameless right-wing media ecosystem, a propaganda arm for the Republican Party. And then on the left, we have liberal media that is so desperate not to be called the liberal media that they take all of their cues from the right. And that's why we're left with, 69 cover stories about Hillary's emails? And so the asymmetry is so vast here. So given that backdrop, the notion that our Democratic elected officials would say, okay, clearly we don't have any need to run to create a similar independent media ecosystem on the left, and so we'll just continue to heap all of our focus, all of our newsy breaking news pieces, all of our interviews, we'll just continue to heap those onto legacy media, even though those are the very people that we complain about, even though those are the very people who are doing the both sidesism, even though those are the very people failing to meet this moment, even though those are the very people who are paying into Trump's inaugural funds by way of settling frivolous lawsuits. We'll still continue to heap all of our goodwill and influence and validation onto those people. And that's why the asymmetry persists, because we've got elected officials in the Democratic Party who do not recognize that we needed to correct this asymmetry 10 years ago, Roland, 10 years ago. And yet we're still in a situation right now where those people are going on CNN or MSNBC talking to the same 50,000, 100,000 people who, by the way, it would be bad enough if it was just that it's a small audience, but those people are already bought in. They're already Democrats. So you're talking to people who are a shrinking number of the electorate and who aren't even persuadable. We're basically bringing sand to the beach at this point. So I guess my message to elected officials out there in the Democratic Party is if you want to reach people, we have a bigger audience in independent media, and this is where the persuadable people are.
And here's what I find to be hilarious. I saw this posted today. Fred Gutenberg posted this here. Go to my iPad. So Semaphore is hosting a summit on February 27th called Innovating to Restore Trust in News, a national summit. And you're going to love this. Those confirmed to participate so far include Megyn Kelly, CNN Worldwide Chairman and CEO Mark Thompson, NBC Universal News Group Chairman Cesar Condi, Fox News' Brett Baier, and Joe Cohen, Executive Editor of the New York Times. Really?
Yeah, I guess if we want to restore some confidence in media, then Megyn Kelly is the person to do that. Right. And this is the problem, because there is this whole incestuous elite, like media elite, where, okay, Megyn Kelly has worked at Fox News, and so even though she is an avowed partisan hack, like she's basically Jim Jordan with heels, even though she is just as much that, still, because she is part of this media elite, they view her as not a problem. It's the same way that everybody in the rest of the legacy media gives cover to Fox, which is a network, by the way, that had to pay almost $1 billion because they lied on Trump's behalf. But still, it's Fox News, and all of these people go to their parties together at night, and so there's really no reason that you would view them as a threat, because after all, you know these people. You go to cocktail parties with these people, and so they're completely fine, and they can stay in the conversation.
The thing that I think is so, when you talk about how they don't get it, I mean, here's a perfect example. And the Biden White House was awful about this. Okay, so I fought with them for 3 years. So whenever the president does the State of the Union or the first speech, the joint session of Congress, they typically do a luncheon with TV anchors. Okay.
Yeah.
And typically it's off the record. You often don't know who's invited. But the problem is that I actually was invited to them under 2 people. Went to 4 or 5 of them under Obama. Actually got invited 3 times by Trump folks. I made 2 of those luncheons. never invited by the Biden people. Now, I said to them, I said, who the hell is going to be in the room? Now, mind you, I wasn't on TV. So under Obama, I had my TV One show, I had a Sunday show. Then when I got the Daily Show, I got invited to that one. Then, of course, and then under, even with Trump, I got invited one before this show even started. But it was like I was sitting here fighting. I mean, I'm talking about hitting Karine Jean-Pierre directly, hitting Chief of Staff, hitting these folks. And in their minds, it was just, no, we're just going to talk to just the major people. And what I said is so I got invited to one with the Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients. And they had Washington Post, some other people, political around in that one. And it was a breakfast meeting with him, but wasn't no damn breakfast. They had orange juice and coffee. And I'm asking about DOJ policies. I'm asking a series of things. I'm asking questions. Everybody else at the table had no idea what the hell I was talking about. And I'm like, that's the point. The opportunity to be able to question the president. And then when they did this sort of black media thing after the State of the Union with senior officials, they would come in, talk, take some questions and leave. Then at the end of it, we did a drive-by through the Oval Office. And so Biden was there, Vice President Kamala Harris, and we took a team photo. And I said, see, this is the problem. They told us it was off the record, but then they released the photo. I was like, oh, we know what y'all did. Now, they don't take a group photo with the main anchors. Ain't no class photo there. But that's the game they played, and I kept saying to the Biden people, I said, nobody's explaining your policies to black people more than we are. What the hell are y'all doing? But they were so out of touch with new media and the world that we're now living in.
It felt like this was an instance where it was like a treat for independent media, regardless of the fact that, again, new media, and I call it new media, but it's not new, nor is it any smaller, nor is it smaller than legacy media, but where digital media, independent media, again, is reaching more people than legacy media and often having more in-depth conversations. I can't tell you how many times I've done hits on TV where you got to figure out how to say what you want to say in 40-second sound bites, and then after a 4-minute hit, you're done. That's not how you can best convey information to the vast majority of this country, and the changing news preferences of people and the way that people consume media right now is a testament to that they don't want to just listen to a 5-person panel spewing off pithy little 30-second sound bites and never really digging 1 inch beneath the surface. I know that when I have the opportunity to speak to people, I ask them for 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. Sometimes I've sat down for 40 or 50 minutes with people. And that's how people want to really dig into the information that's being presented right now. It's not enough to just say, here's a little taste of something and just, you can take that and run with it and consider yourself well informed. It doesn't work like that anymore. But still, there is this mentality that, again, unless it is behind the glossy veneer of legacy media, then it doesn't really count. And I think that until and unless we disabuse ourselves of this notion that it's not legit unless it's on legacy media, then we're going to keep losing. And to the party more broadly, to their credit, I have seen something of a sea change where if for nothing else, at least the postmortem show a lot of people saying this was our big mistake. We didn't take independent media seriously. Now, unfortunately, we're in a situation where the only way we actually get to put that into practice is from this wilderness that we find ourselves in.
What do you say to progressives, liberals, Democrats, whatever label they want to use, who are depressed, disenchanted, mad, upset, want to check out, want to move out of the country, they've given up, they've lost hope? What are you actually saying to them?
I would say that the only thing worse than seeing Donald Trump run roughshod over our government and our democracy is seeing Donald Trump run roughshod over our government and our democracy and us offering no pushback. We can't just sit down, throw our hands up, and turn a blind eye to all of this stuff, because that is giving people who want to do the most harm to us exactly what they want. Do not reward these people by giving them exactly what they want. We were in a very similar situation, although they were a little more chaotic in the first administration. But we were in a similar situation where Trump had full control of government back in 2017, and within 2 years, we would see Democrats win win the House by the biggest margin in modern American history. And so we are in a situation where, again, there's a lot of new people watching politics right now who don't remember the chaos that envelops this country when Trump and Republicans are running things. And they will see that chaos and they will react negatively to that chaos. And so we have the opportunity right now, as we head toward midterms, to fix a lot of the wrongs that we've made. And I don't just mean from a messaging perspective. I mean from the elected's perspective too, in terms of where they get their information out. All of it counts. But we have the opportunity to take advantage of this moment. Start campaigning right now. Start messaging effectively right now. Start fixing the wrongs from the last 4 years right now, and figure out the best way to basically leverage the moment that we've got, which is we're heading into an era of uncertainty and chaos and dysfunction. We know that Americans are going to react negatively to it. We've seen it happen before, and figure out how to best optimize as we head toward November 2026.
Questions from our panel. Michael, you first.
All right, Brian. Today, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader and Congressional Black Caucus Chair Yvette Clarke held a press conference, and they talked about Trump's illegal Republican funding freeze, as well as the D.C. plane crash and him blaming DEI. And one of the things Representative Hakeem Jeffries talked about is how they weren't going to chase every crazy thing that Trump does, but they were going to go after the big things, okay? Because we know he's done at least 300 executive orders since he's been in office. What are one or two tips you can give on how Democrats can effectively fight back and not chase every little thing like buying Greenland or something like that?
Right. I think that's a great question, and that is going to be the whole ballgame moving forward. So, for example, I think you can actually point to the sum of all of the things we're seeing right now, whether it's complaining about DEI as if that's some justification for the plane crash, whether it's freeing these January 6th insurrectionists, whether it's these efforts to buy Greenland, to your exact point, all of it as in total, and say, Donald Trump took office amid promises to lower costs, to get the cost of groceries down, of rent down, of housing down, of eggs down. He's had time to do all this bullshit. He's had time to sign all of these executive orders. He's had time to make overtures to these countries. He's had time to threaten to invade. He's had time to try and impose these tariffs. All this time to do stuff. He's had time to watch Andy Ogles submit a constitutional amendment to get him to run a third term. And yet, what has he done to actually help you? What has he done to actually make sure he can bring the cost down, which was the exact thing that he ran for office on heading into this election? He has not lifted a finger for any of the people who he's actually promised to help. And I think that's the thing that we have to drill down on. And so we can actually use all of these crazy examples, not to focus our attention on each one individually, but to point to them as a sum total and say, if he's had time to do all of these things that, by the way, are going to have no beneficial impact on your life, that are not going to bring the cost down, why can't he actually do the one thing that he promised you when he was trying to get your vote?
Derek.
Okay.
Brian, appreciate the work, and I follow you on social media. My question to you, I'm right here in Georgia, a state legislator, and it's hard for us to cut through the whole misinformation and disinformation. What one or two things that you can advise someone such as myself to help deal with this whole misinformation and disinformation while we continue to fact check the convicted felon?
It's the whole ballgame right now. I've maintained that for years now, Democrats could do everything under the sun, and if we don't have a way to actually message our victories or the truth to people, then it doesn't matter what we do in office, because the fact is the American people are going to know any better. Misinformation and disinformation is the whole ballgame right now. And so I think we have to learn from our mistakes in the past. When we see something happen, for example, if you look at this plane crash, and the plane crash happened, everybody rightly stayed quiet as we waited for some accurate information to come out. And the second Donald Trump gets in front of a microphone, he, of course, blames Joe Biden. He blames Pete Buttigieg. He blames Democrats. He blames the 2020 election. He blames DEI. And then it's off to the races. Then all the right-wing media ecosystem gets their cues from him, and they say, you're right, it was DEI. We got to get rid of DEI. That's the problem. And I think we have to learn this lesson that when we leave a vacuum, Republicans will fill it with disinformation. And so there are no instances where we can just defer to the norms of the past. We have to immediately get out in front of this stuff and tell the truth. And so in this case, if Trump wants to blame DEI, and that's going to be the lasting impression that anybody consumes right-wing media gets, then we have to push back and say, you want to talk about this plane crash? On January 20th, Donald Trump and Elon Musk pushed out the FAA administrator. They never bothered naming a replacement. Also on January 20th, Trump implemented a federal hiring freeze that included air traffic controllers. On January 21st, Trump disbanded the Aviation Security Advisory Committee. On January 21st, he fired the TSA director. On January 22nd, his White House posted a notice on their website saying Donald J. Trump ends DEI madness and restores excellence and safety within the Federal Aviation Administration. So, and 1 week following that, we had the first commercial airline crash in 16 years. So we have to get out in front of this stuff and put accurate information into the zeitgeist, because we have to know by now that no one is going to sit idly by on the right and just wait for accurate information. They're going to inject their agenda into it. That agenda is most likely going to include throwing black people and brown people under the bus, because that is their boogeyman of the moment. And so we have to move quickly, and we have to be relentless in getting these messages out.
Matt?
Yeah, so I hate when I have to go after Derek and Michael because they steal my questions. But, my question is a little bit an offshoot of Derek's. And here's the question, Brian. So I think a lot of times when we're talking about independent media, I think you've alluded to this, there's this implication that independent media is just not as valuable or not as credible, right, as legacy media. So my question for you is, what advice do you have on how people can not only vet the channels that are the independent channels that they're watching, but make sure that what they're getting, to Derek's point, is not misinformation? Because the issue is, a viewership does not necessarily correlate to credibility, right? You can have 1 million followers and be spewing complete BS. So what advice do you have for how people can make sure that they're getting credible information from the independent sources that they're following?
Yeah, that's such an important question right now, as we've seen media literacy kind of descend more and more and more, which makes sense because there's so much declining trust in other outlets. I think what we have to do right now is make sure that you have a wide media diet, and that you're checking everything that you're watching with other sources. And eventually, if you're seeing the same things repeated over and over again, then you'll know if someone's being accurate. If something seems like an outlier, be willing to check those stuff. And by the way, I know that I kind of shit on legacy media a lot, but the reporting that we see coming out of New York Times and Washington Post and NBC and the straight news reporters that are doing the work are still important in our ecosystem. Are they going to meet the moment with regard to fighting back against these partisan Republican outlets? No, but that's not their job either. It's our job in independent media to be able to give our perspective on things. So I think it's important to use a lot of these outlets to cross-reference a lot of what you're hearing on independent media. Make sure to have a vast diet of independent media outlets to cross-reference, so that you make sure that what you're getting is good. And this way you can build up sources that you trust over time. But I think the onus is on people to make sure that that they're not just blindly accepting whatever they see or read on the internet, because even though it might not be malicious, the reality is that we have to all be really careful about what we read. And it happens to me too, where I get caught in some cycle of reading something, and unless I'm able to check it against some of these legacy media sources and against other folks who I've come to trust, then I don't know that I can really lean on something yet. But I do think it's important that in this media environment that we make sure not to blindly trust something if we read it one time from some random dude on the internet.
I dare say, Brian, that I think our biggest job, and it's a lot and it's difficult, is to completely and unapologetically at every turn dispel the constant lies coming from these people. They lie with impunity. They lie about lies. And that's what they do. And I think what happens is a lot of people go, man, it's just so much. I mean, it's just an onslaught of lies, and that's by design. He purposely coined fake news and pushed it because he wanted to discredit any criticism of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's Steve Bannon's model of flooding the zone with shit. They know exactly what they're doing. This may seem like chaos and pandemonium, but in reality, this is a purposeful strategy where they make sure to hit you with so much, a barrage of so much that you don't know which way to look. The point is to distract us. So I think, you and I had been speaking about this earlier, but the importance of making sure where to focus our attention is just as important as the information coming out.
Well, it's a lot that is going on, and I agree. Michael made the point with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Yet you don't respond to everything, but there are some things that you do respond to, and I felt that yesterday. The reason I spent so much time yesterday and today with those attacks on the disabled, on DEI, because really what they are trying to suggest, and they're very clear with it, is that one, when they say DEI, they really mean black people.
Correct.
But two, what they also are saying is, white women, go sit your ass down as well. All we want are compliant white women. And so they are absolutely taking this manly, heterosexual, white, male-only philosophy, and that's what's driving their entire narrative. And people don't understand the depths of this and really how locked and loaded they are when it comes to it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. But I do look. I'm grateful that you've been on this. You've been beating this drum for a long time. You seem to be leading the independent media space and saying a lot of the things that you've in a lot of the folks in the independent media space finally learning the things that you've been saying for a while now. So I'm glad that we have you beating this drum and being such an important voice in this independent media space.
And Brian, real quick, a group of us have come together under the banner of Chorus. So just share with people what that means and how critical that is in this moment.
Yeah, so Chorus is kind of an incubator that we're creating right now so that we can support the next generation of and this current generation of democratic voices, of content creators, of influencers, and we're doing messaging meetings, and this way we can work more deliberately and strategically focus our messaging, which I think is, to the point we've been speaking about throughout the entirety of this interview. That's the whole ball game right now, is knowing where to focus our attention. So we are working on we're working on making Chorus a little bit bigger right now and getting some newer creators, some younger creators, smaller creators in the mix so that we can support them and again build up this next generation, this next crop of democratic voices.
And as I said, there are people who are democratic voices, who are progressive voices, who are liberal voices, or who are I make it clear, I don't take any of those labels. I'm African American. That's what I focus on. And so it's people who want to speak truth to what's going on and who is challenging, frankly, the white nationalist perspective emanating from Trump's Republican Party.
Yeah, and I think maybe the more appropriate label is pro-democracy these days, especially in light of what Trump is doing to the federal government.
Absolutely. Brian, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
I got to get to this real quick, y'all. How stupid is Fox News? They are really dumb. So all these folks on the air, we played you the clips earlier of Jesse Waters and Laura Ingraham and others. They constantly, DEI is awful, is awful, is awful. Until Fox News practices DEI. For the longest, Fox News actually had diversity, equity, and inclusion on their website. For the longest. But what happened was, y'all, media reporter Oliver Darcy began to do some reporting. And what Oliver Darcy discovered was quite interesting. Oliver Darcy discovered that Fox News literally had DEI language in their job postings. I don't think some of y'all just heard what I said. They had DEI in their jobs postings. So what ends up happening is he inquires in light of I got to pull the story up, hold on one second. So he, I'm gonna pull the Mediaite story. Hold on, let's see here. Yahoo News has a story. Here we go, from the Daily Beast. Y'all gonna love this here. So Oliver Darcy, again, after hearing the language coming from the host of the network attacking DEI, he calls him on it. So you know what they do? Go to my iPad. They start scrubbing the language. They start going through all the job postings of the history and getting rid of any DEI language. You see it right here. They removed all signs from it. It says Alma Adams of Status News pointed out the hypocrisy of Fox in his newsletter when he highlighted that the DEI is still included in job postings on the network shows, such as Hannity and Fox and Friends, where they claim that the company is, quote, deeply committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, including attracting, retaining, and promoting diverse talent. The listings added that reflecting diversity of the world around us is critical to our company's success. After being called out, Darcy wrote that the company swiftly scrapped all the DEI verbiage from job listings, claiming via a spokesperson that this was part of their routine upkeep of the website. Fox News routinely reviews our legal obligations, including under federal, state, and local law, and we have removed this language. Y'all really think we buying that? No. But what it also tells me, y'all, that Suzanne Scott, the CEO of Fox News, she don't run that network. You know who runs that network? Sean Hannity. You know who runs that network? Laura Ingraham, Jesse Waters. That's who all runs that network. Not Suzanne Scott, not her. Not her. I met with her when NABJ met with them. And speaking of that, I sent a text message to NABJ earlier, the leadership, asking if they were going to respond to Fox doing this. And only one board member, Vice President for Print, Eva Coleman, responded saying, thanks for sending the information, Roland. So our president, our executive director, none of them responded to my text message. I would think NABJ would want to respond to that. And if Fox is going to be pulling DEI language out of their job postings, will NABJ allow them to even come to our convention to recruit? Because clearly they don't want black people. I just find this to be hilarious, Matt.
Yeah, I do too. It doesn't surprise me though. I mean, we know that they're disingenuous, and I don't really know like how they didn't expect that it was going to be found. And you know, this is the funny thing. I'm a lawyer, but you got to laugh, right? Because some lawyer said, "Oh, we're going to call it a part of our routine legal review." No, it's not. You got caught. You left it on there. You were BS.
Yeah, we clean the website every 3 months.
Miss me with that. It's complete BS. Our continuing legal obligation. It sounds like something, if a client called me and I had to put out a fire, I'm going to sanitize it the best way I can. That's what this sounds like to me. It sounds like they just, play the game when they think it's advantageous to them. And then when they get called out on it because they're trumpeting this crazy rhetoric all the time, they realize they've got to take it off because it's in direct conflict with what they're claiming, they stand for, right? Which is all their reporting on getting rid of DEI and how it's undermining America and all this BS. So none of that surprises me, and I'm glad he caught them with their pants down.
Absolutely. And they're, in the day, they're a bunch of assholes. Fox News is the communications arm of the Republican Party. They are a white nationalist network, and they're a bunch of assholes.
And they're the microphone for Donald Trump. Let us not kid ourselves, Roland. And if he would have learned that they had DEI language somewhere, advertising DEI language, he would have came after them. They're the cowards. And here's the other point, Roland. I mean, if the NABJ don't come out and say something, I think that would be atrocious as well. Because now is the time we cannot be passive. We cannot stand on the sidelines. Those of us who have a platform and a microphone, we need to use it.
Michael?
So, Roland, you mean to tell me that the same network that put out misinformation and disinformation about the COVID-19 vaccine, but we found out a lot, probably the majority of their employees and talk show hosts took the COVID-19 vaccine. You trying to tell me that they have DEI hires that work at Fox News as well?
Sure do. Sure do.
Yeah, and so the question I would ask is, why did you implement your DEI policy? How many DEI hires do you have? And why did you end your DEI policy? What changed? You don't have a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion anymore, or are you afraid of Lucifer in the flesh?
Yeah, no, what changed is that, and this is real clear, go back to my page, this woman here, this Suzanne Scott, she don't run the network. Their on-air personalities run the network. That is clear as day. That's all that means. That's all that means. And I did, if y'all could pull that Laura Ingraham quote, I need y'all to put it. There's nothing more than the video we had. There's nothing more hilarious. I got to say this here. There's nothing more hilarious than to see Laura Ingraham talking about DEI with Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, who is grossly he made her chair of the Republican National Convention when that idiot has no. Come on, guys, show it. It's made her head RNC. She's got no, pull audio down. Yeah, she got no resume. All she is a blonde. She ain't got no political experience, no nothing. Matter of fact, she is an expert at unqualified hiring.
Unqualified DEI hire.
No. See, I ain't even gonna call her a DEI hire. Cause see, they don't consider heterosexual white women to be DEI hires. They only go attack like the woman who's a fire chief in Los Angeles because she's lesbian. That's just how they operate. But she ain't got no. Matter of fact, somebody. Let me find the graphic. I don't know who made this. All I'm saying is, I think they're a genius for making this. I'm gonna close out with this because I think y'all gonna get a kick out of this. I was on Twitter. I was perusing social media. I don't know what platform I saw this on. And I just thought this was too funny that I had to share with y'all. Let's see. Give me. Yeah. Here. What do y'all think about this?
I knew you were going to pull that up. I just knew it. I knew it. I was thinking about DEI. I was saying Donald Jr., Eric, and Ivanka.
Yeah, that's what DEI stand for. 3 airhead children who work for a absolute fool. Matt, Derek, and Mike, I appreciate y'all being on the show. Thanks a lot. Several things about to happen, y'all. So first of all, I'm gonna talk about the giving part. First of all, if y'all watch on YouTube, hit the like button. So hit the like button, okay? I need that to happen. And so I'm gonna talk a little bit about how y'all can support the show. Today, and I wanna pull it up, I saw it a little bit earlier. And I'm glad I saw it because I knew we were around that time, but I wasn't sure of the day. 1 year ago today, we lost the Black Eagle, Joe Madison. Who lost his battle with prostate cancer. He died on this day last year, and I just posted on social media some photos about Joe. And what we're gonna do is when we close out the show, after we show all of the donors, we're gonna roll the interview that I did with Joe when he was in the studio about his book. Joe was a huge supporter of this show. He gave me his $100 donation every single year. I think the last time I saw Joe, I dropped him off at home, and I made a video. I got to find the video. I made a video of us in the car as he gave his donation. And so he was a great man, a great voice. I'm sure if he was with us, he would be, swinging every single morning in his unmistakable way. And so we just wanted to be sure that we recognize him. So to his widow, to his family, we want to say our prayers are with them, and we definitely miss Joe Madison a whole lot. Folks, I want y'all to do what Joe Madison did. When we run those lists of names, Joe Madison's name is on that list because he supported this show with his resources. And so if you want to support the work that we do here, we're doing what nobody else's black-owned media is doing, speaking truth to power every single day. We shot 2 pilots of a new show yesterday. I'm shooting a couple more pilots of new shows. And so we're launching some new shows. A Balanced Life, Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, we're bringing back new episodes, I think beginning Monday or shooting Monday. Dr. Greg Carr is getting ready to shoot some new episodes of his show as well. So a lot of things are happening. And so we want y'all to support the work that we do. And that is contribute to our Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I've had some people, man, who've been out, and I've been seeing the post, man, and I appreciate it. I've been seeing folk make with donations of $100, $250, $500. But listen, if you can't give 50, we understand that. If it's 40, 30, 25, 20, 10, 5, or even 1, we appreciate that as well. And so your support is critical to our success. If you want to give via Cash App, use the Stripe app. Okay, that's the QR code right here, the Stripe QR code. If you want to give via Stripe, that's if you want to use the Cash App, because Cash App closed down all of our accounts when they changed their rules. You want to check and money orders, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you want to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. If you want to, of course, get my book, White Fear, The Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, be sure to get it. And I'm working out a plan of action where I can, you can order the book that I personally autograph and mail to you. I just got to find somebody who can handle that stuff for us, okay? So also get the audio version, which I read on Audible. And of course, if you want to get our merchandise, our shirt, hashtag, we tried to tell you, FAFO 2025, but also Don't Blame Me, I Voted for the Black Woman. You can get that at rolandmartin.creator-spring.com or go to theblackstarnetwork.com. And don't forget, we want you to invest in Fanbase. Download the app Fanbase, invest in Fanbase. They've already raised about $8.3 million. And so the target goal is $17 million. So we're on our way to really build and grow Fanbase. It's a black-owned social media app, but it's not just for black folks. Anybody can join. So go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Again, we're going to roll the list of our donors. Then after we roll that list, then you will see my interview for Joe Madison for when he did his book, when he was right here in our Black Star Network studios. Rest in power, Joe. See y'all on Monday. Holla! Folks, when you hear folks talk about Sirius XM Radio, they talk about Howard Stern, one of the stars, but Joe Madison is also one of the big-time stars at Sirius XM. Has been on their network for a very long time. He will also take Howard's check, too. Of course, for a long time, folks in D.C. heard him on WOL radio. He, of course, has been on the front lines of so many issues, not just in the United States, fighting for Sudan, a longtime friend of Dick Gregory. He was with NAACP board member, talks about all of this stuff, his life in his book, Radioactive, the subtitle, A Memoir of Advocacy in Action on the Air and in the Streets. And Joe is one of them black people who's a member of the Bring the Funk fan club who put the money right in my hand. I tell a story.
Whoa, hold on a second. No. Hold on. This is real, too. There you go.
So I tell
that's my annual due.
Joe gives an annual $100. I did an interview, Joe.
Yeah.
And I think it was with Cafe Mocha. And I had them crying. I said, y'all don't know what it's like when you travel around the country and you're in Tulsa, whatever, and somebody, and like you're on the air, and somebody black just walk up, and they just go.
Look, can I tell you a story?
And they squeeze your hand, and they go. And walk off.
Can I tell you a story that's in the book? I started a cuss jar because I heard Howard Stern cuss a woman out. So I went to the president of SiriusXM, and I said, can I do what Howard Stern does? He says, well, you know, I've heard you slip up every now and then, and it's organic. And he said, but sure. I said, now, whoa, wait a minute. Howard's a 6'5" white guy that you guys are paying $500 million to or more. And if I cuss out some white woman or white man, will you have my back? And he said, yeah. Now, I have my wife with me, who's the executive producer. She's always with me because she's the witness. And we walked out, and I said, did he give me permission to do that? She said, oh, I think he did. So I started doing it. And every now and then, little old ladies would call up, God bless them. Oh, Mr. Madison, you really shouldn't do that. You know, I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm gonna put $1 in. I first called it a swear jar, but then George Wallace said black folks don't swear; they cuss.
We cuss.
And so I changed it to a cuss jar. Now this goes back to what you said about palming.
Right.
I'm at Morehouse. We're doing a voter registration, get out the vote drive. Afterward, we're taking selfies.
Right.
Folks stand up, and the ministers. I walked out of there with $400 in cash, and for the cuss jar. And most of the money came from ministers.
They were like, keep cussing.
I can't cuss, but you are a surrogate cusser.
I had a woman in Tulsa. She said, "Now, Roland, I'm gonna give you this money, but baby, can you just stop cussing?" I said, "Look," I said, I know how you feel. No. I said, but sometimes, I said, look, some stuff got to be said. Look. The show is called Unfiltered. I said, I got to keep it real.
Well, and the reality, if you're gonna let Howard Stern do it, then you're talking about equity.
I mean, I cuss. I don't cuss like Reese cuss.
No.
Now, Reese.
Yeah.
Reese cuss.
Oh, is that right? But see, and every now and then I have to invoke Jackson, man. Samuel. But look, people.
Is two.
Who?
Before I met Reese, there were two people who I thought. First of all, I thought before I met Jennifer Lewis, Sam Jackson was the absolute king of motherfucker. But when I met Jennifer Lewis, she became the queen of motherfucker.
But
Reese is the princess of Reese. Okay, this is how I got to know Reese. Reese would do these videos on Twitter.
Right.
Joe, I'm talking about. She uses more cuss words in 2 minutes than a whole lot of people, but she killing it now. She killing it. And so I said, man, I got to put her on the air. So Joe, she comes on the air, and so she's sitting on the air, and so she's talking. And I'm like, that ain't why I called your ass. I'm like, so after about 3 or 4 appearances, I said, look, I need you to do you. I said, I ain't invite your ass here to be somebody else. The person do them videos, ever since then, oh, Lord. What my girls say, let your freak flag fly, let your cuss flag fly.
Well, it goes back again. In the book, I have a chapter about success. And there was 3 things that I was told. Be original, be authentic, and then be daring. And when you look at folks, and particularly in our business, what you're doing, for example, nobody does this. It's original. You're authentic. When you see Roland Martin, you get Roland Martin. Your guests are all authentic. That's really the formula of success. But I say this, Roland, one of the thing I wanted the book to do was to be in my voice. And that was one of the most difficult things I had with the editor and Dr. Canton, because they started writing it in their voice. And I always go back to what somebody said about Malcolm X and Alex Haley. Because Malcolm used to have to kind of shake up Alex Haley. That's not the way, that's not what I'm thinking about. So I wanted it to be in my voice. The other thing I wanted was people to understand that you use your platform, and I always remember something else. There's a chapter in there that the late Professor Ron Walters said, and that was he gave a lecture, and a student asked, he chastised students about moments. You go in, you have a demonstration, you leave. Go back to the campus, go back to wherever. You just had a moment. What movement? It was a moment. It was a moment. And so one student said, well, Professor, what's the difference between a moment and a movement? And he said, sacrifice. All movements in human history require sacrifice. And sometimes that's what you do. I had to sacrifice a job. I tell this story in Philadelphia. My first full-time talk show, I moved from Detroit. That was my political base. Children were born. I moved everybody to Philadelphia. And I was doing a show, now get this, midnight to 5:30 in the morning. And I was only black. And I had the program director and the owner tell me, now this is after. In Philadelphia? In Philadelphia. We're getting too many calls and letters, because this is before social media. You're talking about black folk too much. And so, you know me. So the next day, I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to interview two people, different viewpoints. So it was Ron Brown, because he was running to be chairman of the DNC, the first black chairman. So I had Ron Brown on 1 hour, and then the next hour, I interviewed Louis Farrakhan. I was gone. And
you say y'all want to see black?
And then when I came to and all of this is in the book. So I'm doing a TV that Geraldo was. This is when the first beginning of talk radio. Right. And there was this argument about black folk, and talk radio, but there weren't a lot of black folk. And the program director of WABC, Geraldo asked him legitimately, why don't you have any black folk in New York, and you don't have a single black person? And he said, oh, well, we have to think about it. And then somebody spoke up and said, well, you do have a black person. And I can't remember the man's name now. And he said, oh, well, we don't think of him as black. And that debate is what sort of got me into Washington. And because the program director said, well, if they don't want you in Philly, we want you in Washington. But I did say this. I'm not going here and replacing another black. See, they have one black person. And I said, so if you're going to hire me and fire her, then I don't want the job, because I'm not going to play that game. Right. This is, and it's about sacrifice. And then take your platform, and you do this all the time. Go to a war zone in Sudan. I swear I asked, and Geraldo can be upset if he wants to. I've been in that war, South Sudan, had gone back and forth at least 6 times. I kept asking people who had more resources than I had, come with me. I mean, he asked me, well, can we get in and out of South Sudan in a day? What hotel are we going to stay in? Excuse me, we're sleeping in the bush. It's a war going on. Yeah. He just walked away. He just walked away, and I think at the time he was with ABC. And then I've had some brothers who I've asked to go with me, and they would say, well, there's a war going on. You don't see the folks at CNN. Everybody's clamoring to get over there because there's a war going on. And the other final thing I wanted people to understand in the book was people tend to look at us as we are now.
Right.
They see you. They say, oh, man, he's got a nice suit on. Brother, I was not born with this suit on.
Right. I always say, no. Everybody want to talk about Bishop T.D. Jakes today. They don't want to talk about when he was digging ditches in West Virginia.
Or when I was 10 years old, my grandfather hauled trash. That's how he made a living. Separated metals, paper, and I worked with him. In those days, they called it a dump. Today, it's a landfill. And that's how I spent my summers. That's how I made my money in my summer. So in the book, I talk about going from working, and my grandfather saying to me, you don't like this, do you? What is there to like? No, hell no, I don't like this. And he said, well, then you got two choices. And that is you either go to the military, in those days, he said the Army, or you go to college. But come 18, you're getting out of here. And I talk about in the book that I go from working in a dump to interviewing the first black president of the United States in the Oval Office. And so I just want people to understand that none of us in this business, first, all of us in this business have to use our platform. And that's what you were talking about all this evening. Yeah. You got to use, everybody can do something. And that's been my mantra. No matter who you are, everybody can do something. I can't do what you do. This place is, I mean, I wish people could see where I am. This is magnificent. Man, you ought to be renting this out to all kinds of folks. But everybody...
That's on the list.
But everybody can do something.
The thing that you talked about being talk radio, and the general public really doesn't think about this, how white folks absolutely dominate talk radio.
Oh, yes.
But not just talk radio, sports talk radio.
Oh. God.
And so how people, I tell people all the time, the media is the second most powerful institution in the world.
First being?
Guns,
okay.
The military. Yeah. Get the guns. Any coup is guns first, media second. Right. And just what you said is what you do with it. So you've seen other folks and how they frame stories and how they talked about stories and how they've talked about individuals. The white loud Republican, how he dogging Phyllis Randall. No, we're gonna have Phyllis on. And again, it's framing. And I tell people all the time, you cannot ignore the reality of how powerful media is in shaping the hearts and minds of the public.
That's right. And the other thing I'll talk about, and that is, and this is what makes your show so fascinating and popular. You hear me say, put it where the goats can get it.
Yeah, I tell people that all around the country. I said, as Joe Madison says, put it where the goats can get it.
That is, I came, and I'm kind of intimidated with all these distinguished professors. I mean, I am absolutely, especially my man from Howard. Look at Greg. I am. But let me tell you, I came back from college, and I believe it was a Thanksgiving dinner. My grandfather, Clarksdale, Mississippi, no more than a 6th grade education. Wasn't because he was dumb. It was just what it was.
Jim Crow as well.
Jim Crow. And I'm trying to wax eloquently about this philosophy teacher and da-da. My grandfather looked, he said, Joseph, why don't you put it where the goats can get it? And I thought, what the hell is he talking about? It's an old country saying, goats eat down to the root. They go beyond the top and they go all the way down. And he said, if you can explain it to me so that I understand it, I imagine that teacher with a PhD would probably understand too.
Right.
And this is what irritates me about all of these talking heads that you see on news shows is I just wish they would just somebody used to say, explain to me like I'm in the second grade.
It's real basic.
Just basic.
I mean, we used to always cross paths during Lou Dobbs' show when he was sane, when he was at CNN.
People don't believe, but at one point he was sane.
Lou Dobbs was absolutely sane. Then he had a lobotomy and he lost his damn mind. Actually, it was talk radio that actually changed him.
Yes, it was.
It was when he got that radio show.
When he got that contract with everything.
Because when he got the radio show, it was around the same time that Rush Limbaugh signed for $100 million.
Yes.
And Lou, that's what caused Lou to lose his damn mind. So we used to always do these shows together, and you're absolutely right. One of the things that made me so popular on CNN, I told it straight.
That's right.
I mean, I wasn't sitting here, and it was a trip because they tried to change my wardrobe.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They tried to change. They always wanted, this is how we do it. I said, whoa, let me explain something to y'all. I ain't them. I remember sitting on the set one day, and Joel Klein with Time Magazine, and we're sitting there, and someone said something. I said, no, I ain't him. I said, first of all, look at him. I said, he got dirt on his jacket. He wearing some khaki pants, this boring-ass blue shirt. I said, I don't know about y'all, but shit, I'm clean. That ain't me. I said, I ain't gonna never look like him. So I don't care what that, because I used to have a clothes rack that was in my office. I had suits, I had shirts, I had cufflinks, and I would be on the air daytime and nighttime. And they would go, you wouldn't change clothes? I said, oh, a brother can't wear the same thing in prime time he wore in daytime. So they were always trying to figure out. I said, y'all, I'm going to do me.
That's right.
And I understood the audience, how to speak to the audience. And the reason that thing I knew was a trip, 2008, the debates had already been scheduled. The first two debates, I had speeches. I wasn't in studio.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
And we lost the first two debates, CBS. So the third debate, I had another speech. I'm flying from speech. The president worldwide calls me. I get a voicemail. Hey, Roland, it's Jim. Buddy, nothing urgent. Give me a call when you can. When the worldwide CEO call you and say nothing urgent, you know it's urgent.
Yeah, you know.
So I knew exactly what. So I called my agent, Mark Watts, and said, Mark, we probably going to have to move that speech next week. I think he's telling me we need you. And when I called him, he said, we need you on set.
Right.
So I go on set, and that's when they had them huge panels. So they had about 10 of us up there. It was 9. It was 8 panelists. It was 9 panelists. It was 2 anchors. They had 8 seats. I was like, so I'm standing up. And I was like, who gonna be the first black person to see me, who called me or sent me an email about me standing up? It was Spike Lee. Black man can't get a chair? So when the night was over, I was like, yo, what the hell was up with that? They said, oh, no. We wanted everybody to see that you were here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what they told me.
Yeah.
That's when you understand how you have an impact on people. And it's who you're communicating with. You have been doing that. But serious is one thing, but talk about, again, being in D.C. and dealing and talking just regular, ordinary folk, the folk like your grandfather, and how they have a commitment to say, we gonna ride with you, Joe. We got your back no matter what happens.
Well, I think you get to a certain point where they just can't deny you. Look, they know you're professional. And I think there's the other issue. I'll say this. They know you'll walk out the door. I mean, I will walk out the door. Can I add something, though? Not to get off that point. You were talking about Jackie Robinson. I think the piece you did was superb. I wanted to remind everybody that this summer, Rachel Robinson is going to be 100 years old.
Indeed.
And if you're going to talk about Jackie Robinson, you got to talk about Rachel Robinson. And I'll say this may tick a lot of people off. I said it yesterday at George Washington University. They have a Jackie Robinson project that they won't fund. The university won't fund it. They have to raise their own money. And I said yesterday, maybe if Will Smith had just stopped and paused for a moment and thought about Jackie Robinson and what was said to Rachel in those stands. They called her everything but a child of God. And I said, and he had a bat in his hand.
Yeah.
And maybe he just should have thought about Jackie Robinson and what was said about him and the woman he was married to until the day he died. Now, I know there's an argument about who should have slapped who or not slapped and that kind of thing. And I personally also think that there ought to be curriculum in every college about Jackie Robinson's legacy, because it was more than just baseball.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, you read his book, I Never Had It Made.
He was a business person. I mean, the professors know better.
And was hardcore and challenged his own Republican Party.
And there's another issue too. I've been hitting on Fort Hood. Now, first of all, well, he was court-martialed. There is an effort and a petition to change the name of Fort Hood to the Jackie Robinson base.
Really?
Yes. Look it up. And by the way, so let's start with who was Hood. He was a Confederate general. He was a Confederate general who, by the way, quit the military. So I want the audience out there to go look it up. And I think that's one of the next things that since they're talking about changing the names of these bases.
And one of the hardest things to find is the TNT movie where Andre Breyer played Jackie Robinson. It was called The Court Martial of Jackie Robinson. You cannot find that anywhere.
Yeah.
I remember watching it. It may be still on VHS tape, but not even on DVD. I got some other questions. I'm gonna bring in the panelists in now, so they can ask.
You didn't tell me. Now I got to take. I got to take an exam from you.
Yeah, you do. So I ain't gonna go to the professor first, because we gonna ease into it. So the cusser, the chief cusser on Roland Martin Unfiltered, who's also a contributor on Sirius XM, the Clay Kane Show, Reese Colbert. Reese, your question for Joe Madison.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction and dubbing me the princess of cussing. Joe Madison, it's such an honor to be in company with you on this show. So thank you for blessing us with so many gems. A question that I have for you is, now I feel like news in our society and our attention span moves so fast. You have such a long career, and I'm just curious, did it feel like that in the other kind of historic and significant eras that we've been through, that things were moving fast and it was easily forgotten? Or does it feel a little bit different, like we have to, push harder to really, get people to see the gravity and the momentous part of what we are experiencing?
And I have to apologize.
Putting into context,
I didn't hear the first part.
Putting into context this moment that we're in, all the different things that are going on. How does it compare to other eras that when you've been on?
Nothing has really changed other than the characters, and also the means of communicating is a lot faster. I think the reality is. War is war. Inflation is inflation. Black folk have always had to survive, as Roland and all of you were explaining the first part of the show. It's something. Maybe the best way to put it, like putting it where the goats can get it. It's Jim Crow's sophisticated cousin. I always refer to him as James Crow Esquire. Same attempts to maintain white supremacy. No ifs, ands, buts about it. It's just more sophisticated. And they've learned a few tricks. But the reality is that it's just sophisticated. And we have to do more reading. We have to do more researching. And I also say this, it's, again, in the book, Radioactive, it's cultural conditioning. Now, what do I mean by cultural conditioning? And you've been saying this all evening long. America is culturally conditioned to believe that white is superior, black is inferior, and the manifestation of that cultural conditioning is that blacks are undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. And some of us are culturally conditioned.
That's right.
To believe, to undervalue, underestimate, and marginalize ourselves. When you were talking about the monarchs, you can have both monarchs and blacks in Major League. I mean, but we have to recondition.
That's right.
Our culture, and culture is the
for me, I say reprogram.
Yeah, but it's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. And culture is the hardest thing to change.
Yeah.
And in any country, culture is the most difficult thing to change.
But see, what you said about when you talked about if Will had stopped and thought about Jackie Robinson, it's about being intentional. Just what I was saying, when I was picking shoes, I could have said, I'm gonna wear the white pair of shoes. No. I'm gonna specifically wear those because they're black-owned company. That means stopping yourself, thinking it through, taking that moment, thinking it through. No, I'm wearing these for a reason. And I think what happens is we have gotten, first of all, I tell people all the time, we have to really not appreciate, but understand how powerful white supremacy was in terms of how it's so deeply ingrained into our psyche and white folks that, yeah, we can look at something, and I get it all the time where somebody's like, yeah, but we gonna get you a real show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what the hell is it? What you mean real?
Oh, let me tell you about.
And they really mean white.
Yeah, I have a chapter in the book where I talk about, people always ask, how did you get the handle Black Eagle? And when I first started using that handle, folks went crazy on the radio. I mean, these white people went nuts. Now, the managers didn't, because what are they going to tell me? I can't say it. And let me tell you how it came about. I was following Oliver North. We're in a meeting with a talk show consultant who was bragging about Oliver North. Oliver North had never done talk radio before. Oh, he's the Captain Kirk of this this Enterprise ship. And I said, well, what are we? We're not oatmeal. I mean, what are we? And he brushed me off. So I left the meeting and got in the car with Dick Gregory. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to start calling myself the Black Eagle. I'm in Washington. Right. National bird is the eagle. And I said, but have you ever heard of a black eagle? He said, no, but I think tomorrow morning we're going to be hearing about it. But guess what happened? I find then it's fate. I'm looking at National Geographic, and they do a special on eagles. And the biggest, largest eagle species is a black eagle.
Wow.
And then you would have folks call in, white folks call in and say, well, if you the black eagle, I'm the white pigeon. And I said, well, just remember, eagles eat pigeons. So, I mean, I just think you have to be original, you have to be authentic, and you have to be daring. Yep. That is, and you know who told me that was Aretha Franklin.
The Queen.
Yeah, because when you hear Aretha Franklin, that's who you hear, and you know it.
Yeah.
And remember, she wasn't a big success when she first started out because she was doing other people's...
She was doing covers.
Covers. When she decided to be authentic... There
you go.
That's when she became a hit.
There you go.
That's why, and I say this, and that's why I consider you a brother and a friend. You're authentic. And people need to understand that. You are authentic. And folks just don't like it, just gotta get used to it.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Terrain Walker.
First of all, Joe, it's an honor and a privilege to be in the same space with you. First of all, this is amazing. My question to you is, well, there has always been a history with black entertainers and black reporters and black radio people, where they were the voices of they were basically the voices of the community, and they were able to interpret world events to the community. And my question to you is, do you feel like some of that legacy has been lost? How can we bring that back? How can we revitalize the idea of black people like yourself, like Roland, being the griots for the community and interpreting black communities to the world and the world of black people?
We've always had in these cities, in each one of these cities, you had a black eagle, you had that voice.
Yes.
It could have been a DJ, it could have been a talk show host, it could have been a columnist.
There was a congressman during Reconstruction period. He was known as the Black Eagle. Yeah, go ahead.
And in many ways, I think what Terrain is saying is we've lost that. And so how do we bring that back where we have these voices that, to your point, that are sacrificing for the collective, and I'll add to what you said, Terrain, who are not all about getting them the check, but is really about representing the people in the community.
I don't know how to answer that. I really honestly don't know. I think that's maybe one of the reasons I did the memoir, is what made you? What made you? My grandfather, working with my grandfather in the trash truck. What made you? Was my minister at St. Margaret's Church, who was a brilliant man. What made you? It was a football coach who, by the way, my first football experience, I got kicked off the team because I was active in large part in the black student movement. This is, and some of you may know this, and that is we were trying to get black studies on these campuses. Brothers are getting kicked off the football teams around, go read this, around the country because they wore afros or because there was a black student movement and ball players were looked up to. And if you walked around campus maybe with a black band as part of the protest, the coach would call you in and say, you take that black band or you lose your scholarship. And some folks wouldn't do it, and they'd sacrifice their scholarship. That's the best way that I can answer it. Our perspective is what creates us, and our experience creates our perspective. And so I guess it was all the things I went through, and that's why it was a challenge writing this book, because I had to go back, and the editor kept saying, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And so it's based on your experience. Why are you the way you are? Why are these professors the way they are? And
what makes you you?
What makes you you?
The way I would answer what Terrain asked is this way. I am who I am today because there was a black newspaper that I worked for. John Ware was a former city manager of Dallas. He left to run a $1 billion investment fund for Tom Hicks, a big private equity guy, later bought the Texas Rangers. And when I was at Tom Jones, BlackAmericanWeb.com, and then when I got fired from there, and I was sitting here trying to do some other stuff, and I would call John. And this is what John always said. He said, Roland, it doesn't matter, just get a platform that you control. So the way we do that, Terrain, we have to create the platforms. So when I launched this show, it was never going to only be me. The moment I launched, I said, I'm gonna be the tent pole, I'm gonna be the axis. And so the people who I bring on, then that's gonna then create who stands out, create a show for them. So now Faraji has his daily show. Here was Faraji, a 25-year-old young brother from Baltimore, coming on my TV One show, and I was like, all right, well, he got something. He got something. And then I created Faraji, we're gonna do this daily show, and so bring him on. And then Greg, Greg, I'm thinking about this here, and but that wasn't even a Black Star Network. And even before Greg was doing what he's doing with Karen Hunter, we were talking about, okay, we create this, but I got to build this first. Yeah. And then my wife's show, and then what Deborah Owens is doing, and then there are 4 or 5 other shows. Right. People been hitting me, Roland, what a Reese show. I'm like, calm down, y'all. Like, calm down. I got a plan. Everybody chill. But that's really it. If we don't build the ecosystem terrain, then you're not going to have the voices, because there has to be a place where who owns it gives you the freedom to develop your voice, cultivate your voice, cultivate your rhythm, your tone, all those different things. That takes time, and you ain't gonna get it over there. It was Jonathan Rogers. Everybody, this is no disrespect. It was not Kathy Hughes. It was not Alfred Liggins. It was Jonathan Rogers, who was the founding CEO of TV One, who said, I'm going to put you on. America needs to hear your voice, but we got to get the network built first. Jonathan got the job and called me. He called Royal, his wife, first, called me. TV One wasn't even named, but he told me that, but I had to be patient. That's how I got developed.
Same thing happened with the Sirius XM. I was on WOL, Radio 1, and satellite radio was created. They did not have a black talk platform. Did not have one. And Nate Davis, brilliant. He was president. And no one thought that satellite radio would take off. You remember that?
Nate Davis, y'all black.
And Nate Davis, brilliant, just as quiet. And he said, you know what? We need this channel. Because, Sirius is like, I always look at it, it's like a bookstore. And if you don't like what's on channel 26 or 126, go over to another, I forget how many channels there are. So it's like, if you don't like this book in this section, then go to another section. And Nate Davis came to me and said, we have got to have a platform like, and initially it was the Power. Now, they know how I feel about that. It should have stayed the Power. But, some brother came on and said, well, I don't like news, and, and the Power sounds so 60-ish, and I'm blowing him out, but that's okay. And say, let's change it to urban view.
First of all, I hate when they slap urban on anything. I'm like, just say black shit. Don't. I hate. Dude, I can't.
But wait a minute.
I can't stand when they throw urban in or soul.
But wait a minute. You got the Patriots channel. So that's the right wingers. You've got what is it? Progress. And that's
the liberal channel.
Basically the liberal.
The POTUS channel.
Politics of the United States. Now, why can't you? And I've argued this. Why can't you have the black channel with all these brilliant minds you have and call it the Power? And so what I've been told is, it is what it is now. You guys are really popular, so don't change it. And I'm saying, okay, I'm still gonna cuss. No, I'm teasing.
Dr. Greg Carr.
Oh, I'm really intimidated now. Oh,
no,
God.
It's the opposite, Baba. I tell you, man, I could just sit here and listen to you all night. I want to add my honor and respect given to you. Like Reese and Terrain said, every time that I've been around you and seen you, it's just an honor, brother, sometimes to shake your hand and stand there and listen. I remember the first time I saw your studio in Sirius XM in D.C. I went down to do Wilma Leon's show on the weekend. We walked by, I said, that's where the Black Eagle sits. And I'll never forget that. But I guess my question is very broad. and it kind of echoes what Reese was asking, Brother Madison. And I know my old classmate Dave Canton probably gave you hell because he, like me, is an academic and trying to put words in your mouth, and you had to get him straight. But he says in the beginning of your book there, Radioactive, he says, you always remind us to listen with our third ear.
Right.
And so looking forward, and you and Roland are really talking about this, but I wonder what you see with your third eye, what you hear with your third ear about the future of media generally. I don't know if radio will ever be displaced. I mean, we all grew up on radio. Hearing your voice got us through many a challenge in our community. But I wonder, as you're looking forward with legacy media seemingly coming apart at the seams, what do you see in terms of breaking through all the noise and really capturing the imagination of our people, particularly as it relates to information? And thank you for your continuing work, Bob.
With this whole piece about listening with the third ear and reading with the third eye, that came from a older politician. I remember the ride from Detroit to Lansing. He was a state senator. And he said, look, young man, I was just brand new running the NAACP. And he said, the best of what's his name, Will Rogers. Will Rogers? He said, yes, there's a book out, read The Best of Will Rogers. Now, who is Will Rogers? Will Rogers was like the Johnny Carson of his day on radio. He was the one that would say, Congress is the second oldest profession. I mean, and people would listen to him.
Oh, homespun.
Oh, yeah. But political humor.
Yeah.
He was, now, the other thing he said was listen with a third ear and read with a third eye. See, and so to answer your question, too often, and we take what we see and not realize what's really being done in the background. That's that third eye that you see. What is that news story? What's really behind that news story? So again, radio will always be around. I think it was a point in time where I think we used to say whenever people would take over a country, there would be a revolution. The first thing they take over is the radio station.
Yeah. After the military, it's media.
They take over the radio station, and we see that.
Radio station, newspapers.
And so here's where I think it's going, and that is everybody now is a potential communicator.
Yep.
Right with this. Everybody now is and we're seeing it. Yep. Like the story out of Michigan,
yep.
Where that
Grand Rapids.
And thank this guy, the passenger, became a reporter.
There you go.
He pulled that young girl in Minnesota.
That's why I give lessons on the air saying shoot horizontal, please, so it fills the whole screen up. Yeah. Don't shoot vertical. We get the black bars. I tell everybody, shoot video, shoot like this.
Now the other thing is that. And I know folks like to criticize the younger generation. But I tell you, I did my hunger strike. And folks thought it was crazy. Mm-hmm. But I knew what I was doing because Dick Gregory and I used to, and he taught me how to do it. And he taught me why you do it. You do it to get attention.
Right.
You get it to get the people. Now, we didn't get the legislation because we had 2 Democratic senators that just were traitors to our cause. But you know what we did? We woke up a younger generation. They now know what a filibuster rule is. They now know how Congress works. Young folk went on hunger strikes that you couldn't get them to pass a fast food place. They realized we have to make sacrifices. We woke up a generation. And Doctor, I will say this to you, and I say this with all due respect. Quit talking about passing the torch. Now, I'll tell you why. I'm not going to pass my torch. I'm going to hold on to my torch. I'll light your torch.
Right.
So because if I pass my torch on to you, I'm in the dark.
Right.
I'm in the dark.
I use the relay example.
Thank you.
You run the relay. This is what I explain to people.
But you got to keep running, though.
Right. First of all, right. You're running at the same time they're running.
Right.
When you stick it out, they have to reach back. And there's a point when both of you are holding the baton at the very same time, and then you got to let that baton go.
And that generation has to run faster than we did.
There you go. So what I tell folks, I've always hated that phrase too. Even when I was 20, 30, I hated that phrase because what it said to a lot of people is, "Oh, I'm just gonna sit here and do nothing." I wish y'all all people get out of the way. We were on. I'll never forget. It was after Trayvon Martin, after the Zimmerman decision, he's found not guilty, and folks were just they were shocked. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the night. It was a Saturday night. Deltas had their national convention here. I was actually at their step show, and the thing that just was circulated. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, probably about 800 people around the world who were on the phone. The next night, it was like 2,000 people who were on the phone. People just wanted to talk. It was interesting. They had no place to. They were like they wanted to go to some place to convene. It basically turned to a talk show. But what was a trip is that a group of black folks 20, 30, 40s. Started convening. It was very interesting, and so we're on these calls, and one of the things, Joe, about really smart people, really smart people don't sometimes know how to slow down. So they're sitting here, and they was like, "We call for do this and do that, and this and this, and the website." They're going on and on, and so Jeff Johnson and I, we chilling. Jeff goes, "Folks, I'm just curious. Who are we targeting? Who do we say we're speaking for?" So Jeff and I, we started communicating on this deal. So that was this young lady who hit Jeff, and she was like, "Oh, I'm tired of these old heads like Roland Martin. Why is he on the call?" And Jeff said, "Let me ask you a question. You think he arrogant?" He was like, "And?" He said, "But who else on the call has a national platform?"
Yeah, exactly.
He said, "He the only one." And then he said, "Who else on this call, if we needed somebody to kick off what we were doing and put $10,000 on the table, who could do it and not blink?"
Yeah.
He said him. He said, "Why in the hell would you not want that person at the table?"
Yeah.
That's part of that whole thing with this folk fighting and who I don't want in the room. I'm like, hey, if you got something to contribute, we all can be.
Everybody can do something.
Everybody.
Look, Rosa Parks lit my torch. In the book, we talk about we boycotted the city of Dearborn, and because an issue with a park. Dearborn is not the Dearborn you know now.
Right.
It was a sundown town, and a dusted sundown, and the black population was less than 1%. Some black folk. Here's Dearborn. Here's Detroit. You cross the street, you're in Dearborn. Some folks went over and went to a park shelter. People came in and said, "Well, you can't. This is Dearborn Park. You can't have this. It was a public park. You can't use this shelter." And lo and behold, we're reading again the newspaper. A good friend of mine, he worked at John Conyers' office. Rosa Parks worked there, and he said, "We got to do something about this. This is a public park." So we got together and said, "Okay, fine, we'll boycott the city of Dearborn." So, they had a huge regional mall. Black folks were spending their money. We did. And Rosa Parks said, "I'll join you." Oh, okay. And so we decided, we took a lesson from Randall Robinson and the boycott, the boycott of the South African embassy. We did it the day before Thanksgiving. Why? Media. Why? You know why. Because Thanksgiving Day was going to be a slow news day. So Rosa Parks and Joe Madison gets arrested in Dearborn, calls for a boycott. 70%, it was instantaneous. It was spontaneous. People stopped shopping. That's what they call now Black Friday. Right. They stopped. Let me tell you who gave me more hell than anybody in Dearborn. The older black leadership. You did not get my permission to call a boycott. because Henry Ford called all of the black leaders. Now, Coleman Young was mayor, and there were some powerful black folk. I'm just a young 20-something NAACP executive. I don't know. I wasn't even with. I was on the political department at the time. Yeah, because I was with Ben Hooks. They called me into a meeting. This was a Saturday morning. They have eggs, bourbon, and you know that one of those meetings, like a kitchen cabinet. And there were some powerful folks. There was a federal judge. There was a mayor. There was a labor leader. Man, these are older brothers.
Right.
And they said, you know, you remind me of myself when I was your age. But young man, this is Coleman Young, you got to, you know, you didn't get my permission to call this boycott, and you got Henry Ford pissed off at me, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, Mayor Young, with all due respect, I didn't think I needed your permission to call a boycott. And I have it in the book. He looked me in the eye and said, boy, you need my permission to fart in this city. But you know what? You can't stop it.
Right.
It's already happened.
Too late.
It's too late. You got to call it off. And they tried to pressure us to call it off. It was too late. And the lesson I learned was boycotts are successful one of two ways. And Ben Hooks taught me this. They're either spontaneous or they're well planned.
There you go.
And he told this group of folks who wanted me out of the city, we know it wasn't well planned because y'all didn't help him. And he pulled me out of one of these meetings and said, no, he's not, because they said, get him out of town. And he said, he's not going anywhere. Come on. He stood me up and said, come on, we're leaving. This is, and by the way, this is what young people need to understand. It's never been kumbaya.
Never.
We've always, you know, Dr. King wouldn't go on the the bus rides, on the freedom rides, because he thought it was dangerous. Kennedy said, talk him out of it, talk John Lewis out of it.
And they say we're still going.
Yeah, and that's why all of this is in the book, and that's why it's radioactive. And I got to give credit to Ron Daniels, our brother Ron Daniels. He said, you know, you're just radioactive. And I always remember that from the good professor.
We're going to go 7 more minutes. I know we're over. We're going to only go 7 more minutes.
See, when you have your own show, you can do that.
That's true. That's true. But I'm also, you paying. I got to pay overtime. I'm going to do this. So the panel, you can have another question, but I'm going to ask a couple first. First, who black gave you the most difficulty interviewing them? Where they were like just getting on your damn nerves, and you had to just like, where it got contentious, it got hot.
Nobody.
Who? So was there anybody? Did you have any interview where it was a battle? It was a.
You know, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I can't think of anybody, like you said, who was black. No, I really can't think of anybody. One of the things I always do, and you know why this is important, I always prepare. I've known you for, decades. I still prepare. When I come, because the one thing is true about the Roland Martin show, I don't know what he's going to ask. I don't know what attitude he's got. I don't know what Roland took out of this book. And so, but, I have to be prepared. Now, and I say this because I got to tell you, I've had some difficulties with elected officials that really piss me off because they want the questions in advance.
Right.
And you got to stick to these questions in advance. I'm not going to give you the questions in advance. First of all, I don't always know. I have a set of questions. The staff, Sherry, my wife, is the executive producer, Sam Nassau. They put questions together. And sometimes I'll use those questions as a springboard. But Larry King taught me something, and that was that the next question is always based on the last answer.
Go. Absolutely.
And that's and I'm not a journalist. I use journalistic techniques.
Right.
But I'm not a journalist, so I always tell elected officials, especially, don't treat me like I'm with CNN or a matter of fact, you ought to do what Trump learned how to do. Trump knew how to use all those folks over at Fox. Yep. And they'll tell you they're not journalists.
Right.
If anything, they're advocates.
Oh, absolutely.
And what do you have here? You know, you've got folks who are journalists, but they also are advocates.
There you go.
You know, yeah. I mean, so that's how I would answer. I really don't think any.
I got a few.
Okay.
Who did you interview that you fanned out? You would just, you're a professional, but man, you were a fan, and to sit across from them and get to talk to them and interview.
Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks. Really, Rosa Parks. And that's like asking your favorite child. Because she was just so honest in her answers. She didn't have to, she's at that stage in her life, there's no pretense. I don't have to impress you, young man. I'll tell you another person, Berry Gordy. You know, I'm a Motown guy, and Berry Gordy, just honest, straight up answers about all these folks that that I've come to admire. And I'll tell you somebody else who I became a big fan of, Michelle Obama. I've interviewed I tell the story in the book about they called me. The president would like you to, would you mind doing an interview with the president? It was midterm. Republicans are going to take over the Senate and the House. And I said, sure. And so what time you want us to place the call? Oh, no, we want you to come into the Oval Office. Excuse me, this is radio. I'm not bringing it. I don't have a TV camera. But I knew what the game was. I'm going to bring Joe Madison into the Oval Office. It's radio. We could have done this by phone.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, Brother Madison, Joe, let's sit right here where all the world leaders sit. We have a photograph of it in the book with the fireplace. That's when I look at this fireplace, I'm reminded.
Hey, Greg, I ain't get that call.
And the one thing I learned, so how much, and they said, well, you only have, what was it, 10 minutes something with the president. Now,
and he was always long-winded.
Well, and I never interviewed a president of the United States, so I went to a friend of mine, and I said, I only got 10 minutes. It takes him 10 minutes to answer one question. And this person reminded me of something. This is what I remind everybody. He said, Joe, forget that. That's staff time.
Right.
He'll tell you when his time is up.
Yep.
Man, we went for 25 minutes.
There you go. Now
25 minutes.
Now was that so? Now was that interview September or October 2010?
October.
Okay. So,
and let me tell you what. But here's the funny joke. So we get to it. We're now into the interview, and I hear this. Woof, 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 woof. It's the helicopter coming, and to Marine One. And it lands outside, and he stops the interview. He says, "Oh man, Joe, brother, I got to stop. My ride has gotten here, and you don't want a brother to miss his ride." But Michelle Obama is real, no pretense, and we just clicked just like that, you know, because of her experience. Her experience is quite different than his experience. We just related. She was just she put it where the goats could get it.
So before I go to panels with questions, so let me tell you how that interview and others happened.
With who? Oh, okay.
Obama in the midterm.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So Obama gets sworn in January 2009.
Right.
He's on the Tom Joyner Morning Show the day before the inauguration. Okay? So we go through all of 2009. Does no black media.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So we get to 2010. When I would do Joyner, I would connect before, and we'd be on before. And so Tom was constantly complaining, how in the hell Michael Steele has been on my show more than the president?
Yeah.
Tom was like, all the stuff I did, all the stuff I...
Yeah, and we were all going through that, having that training.
So Hurricane Katrina anniversary is August 2010. Obama does this sit-down interview with Brian Williams. I said, enough of this shit. I sent Valerie Jarrett an email. I said, y'all gonna have to learn how to come home. I said, we've had Michael Steele on 3 times. Y'all ain't done Tom, Steve, Joe. I see interviews with everybody. Yeah. I said, we got midterms coming up. We waited all of 2009. Here we are, more than halfway into 2010. Y'all need to be talking to black radio and black media.
That's true.
Okay, I got you.
That's true.
So the next week, he's on Joyner. So they start scheduling him.
Yeah.
And when he comes on, he apologizes to Tom. You know what? I should have been doing more of this. I should have been here earlier. But I sat there and I said, no. So Tom was trying not. I said, no, I'm going to tell her. This don't make any sense. Now, everybody who's watching, y'all remember when I was going off on Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So let me tell you what happened. So I called Joe. What y'all don't realize, y'all understand how we work. It's like passing the ball, who gets an assist.
Yeah, that's right.
Y'all don't understand. like we did in the Senate meeting with the Democratic leadership 2 weeks ago. So I'm telling Joe about how I'm blasting Pelosi every day. Joe's like, shit, hell, they ain't done my show. Joe, I've been asking for years. I see it. So we going. He said, I'm gonna support you. So the next day, Joe goes on the show, says what I'm doing. Well, Pelosi's people were listening. Phone rings. She was on what, 48 hours later? Yeah. Joe called me, hey, Ro, she gonna be on the show in 2 days. And I was like, good. She did April Ryan. April came, she's like, bro, I gotta thank you for that. I said, here's my whole deal. I said, I still ain't got the interview. I said, but Joe got her, April got her. I said, but that's the whole point. It's not about your ego. It's, yo, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you. Right. We all in this thing together. We all gotta apply that pressure to them and say, don't play us small.
And why is that the case? Because we have basically the same audience and the same responsibility to educate our audience. That's why.
So to Terrain's question, part of that, how do you create that group? Is you got to have folks who are willing to pass the ball to each other, which is why we talk, which is why we compare notes, which is why if I ain't get, Joe, are you getting this here? No, hell no, they ain't coming on. Okay, cool. When I go in, I'm going to say, y'all got to do me and y'all got to do Joe. That's the thing that people don't understand. Yeah. Most people don't understand the conversations that we have before the meeting.
Right, and
so like, look at him, we're going to this meeting.
And that's why I said when we first started.
So like when you hit them about Africa.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? Yeah. I said, hey, Joe, we going to hit Sudan, Cameroon, Ethiopia.
That's right.
Give me a name. Roland, put this person on. That's how it happens.
Because I had gone to Sudan with the brother from South Africa, and he had been begging Madison, you got to get folks talking about the fact that 70% of the folk in South Sudan are starving to death.
But the point is, we who are in with the platforms can't be so selfish where we don't talk to each other and work with each other. All right, next round of questions, final round of questions. I know, yes, staff, we're running over time, but trust me, I got something planned, and y'all gonna get over it when y'all experience it. Reese.
Yes, my next question is, you know, you do radio, and I'm on the Clay Kane Show every Thursday, and I really enjoy the call-in aspect of it. Can you just talk a little bit about, how that has influenced your career, having that back and forth on a daily basis, and really, how it's helped you move the needle in terms of what Black America is talking about?
Call us.
Okay, one of the things that I've learned and is if I had to do a boot camp on talk radio, callers can often, first of all, callers should never run your show. It should not be a call-driven show. I don't do open line, and I'll tell you why. Because too often that is meant the personality or the broadcaster didn't prepare.
And to talk about.
And I've tried that a couple of times where I said, you know what, y'all take over the show, the callers, y'all call. We got, on social media, we were bombarded. Don't ever do that again. And because folk call up, they want to hear your opinion. They want to know. They want to, and then you let callers respond. But I tell you, I think the worst mistake you can make is to one. Let callers take over the show. I think the other mistake you make is what I call frequent callers. We have a rule on the Madison show, it's one call a week. Now, the reason is, again, I learned this, that if you've got 6 million people listening to you and you can't fill up 9 lines, then you're doing something wrong. And then what happens is, if I did that and had frequent callers, it'd be the same people every single day, and they would call in every single day. Well, that's not necessary now because we have something called podcasting. So, and that's what I tell them. Look, this is the Madison show. This isn't Joe Blow's show. And if you want your show, go do a podcast. And there aren't very many successful podcasts.
No. Well, what gets me is when people, I love these people, they hit me yesterday. Roland, why you keep interrupting the guy? Because I have a very simple rule. I can't allow a lie to be told.
That's my rule. That's my rule.
Allow it to stand.
That's right.
Because here's how I say it.
You're right.
If you're listening to me and a lie is told and I don't say anything, you think I just heard the truth.
And there's another issue, too. You see these distinguished professors we have here? They're listening. And if they hear a lie and I let it stand, they're going to jump my ass.
Boom. right, precisely. Even when you make a basic mistake, like all these Sigma Gamma Rhos are mad because yesterday I was rattling off all the names and the colors, and I said Sigma Gamma Rho was blue and white because I was thinking Phi Beta Sigma.
Why would you mess with Sigma?
First of all,
well, you're looking at a Sigma. Shut up.
But they irrelevant to me.
Oh,
But Greg is an alpha right there, so you got 2 alphas in here, so I mean it's a cute little group.
Shut up.
Terrain, your question.
Oh boy. Joe, my question is this. How do you manage to keep your message on point and keep your direction of your show on point when there's so much other noise around and there's so many other platforms and there's so much other stuff that goes on? You know what I mean? Like Black people, there's so much entertainment, there's so much other distractions. How do you keep focused on news and media and keep that on point?
I have a great staff. First of all, there is no way I could do what I do without Sherry. There's no way. And then my producers, a couple of producers, and our interns. So their charge every day is after we get off the show, we have a production meeting. All right, what went down? What got a good response? That type of thing. But then their job all day long, people think, well, it ends, you end at 10 o'clock. Oh, no. We are constantly, reading, reviewing the news, analyzing it, what was said, what wasn't said, how it was said. And then in the morning, which starts for me about 3 a.m., the producer is 4 a.m. We're looking at a list of topics, of stories. And we then decide as a team which ones we think folks want to hear about. So there's a couple of approaches we take. Which ones will get people talking and give people an opportunity to vent and express their opinion. Then there's a list of shows, what are you going to do about it? See, I can't, for example, when the slap heard around the globe, of the world, there isn't anything I can do about that. None of us can do anything about that. But I knew damn well that we were going to spend 4 hours talking about it. So that, so that's how I do. But the most important thing is thinking critically. Again, with that listening with that third ear, reading with that third eye. Am I hearing the truth? Is there a story behind the story that people need to know so that I'm really educating my my audience? And then the final thing I do is to debunk all of this lies. And the critical race theory was it comes to my mind. And I'll say this, I was thinking of this while we were sitting here, Roland. We all were arguing, oh, they don't know what the critical race theory is. They don't know what the critical race theory is. And that was that people kept saying. And I didn't know what the critical race theory, I hadn't heard of it. But I think that's the wrong thing we should be saying. We should be saying, what is the critical race theory?
Right.
We should be educating ourselves as to how it got started, who was the architect, what it is meant, and quit responding by saying, well, they don't know. Well, the reality is, we didn't know either.
Right. That's what I said.
We didn't know either.
I told people, I said, I done run 3 black newspapers, black radio station, black website, black magazine. I said, I had never heard of critical race theory.
So our responsibility is to educate. And that's the umbrella that I educate. And then once you're educated, then what are you going to do about it? I keep going. See, and I get these folks that call in. This goes back to the first question about callers. Go ahead. Go ahead. Now, here's my final question. What are you going to do about it? Not what is Roland going to do, not what Madison's going to do.
What are you prepared to
do about it? And you usually get crickets.
Yep. Same thing.
Because most people don't do anything. And that's why we call it radioactive.
And look, I did the same when I was on WVON in Chicago. I would do the exact same thing. Don't sit here and call bitch and mom. What you gonna do? All right, final question from the panel by Alpha. Brother.
I appreciate that, Roland. Well, we know, Baba Joe, you and Baba Dick Gregory, another Alpha, was thick as brothers. So, I mean, we know you ain't got nothing against Alpha. That was your man. So, anyway, I want to ask you about something that you undertook in terms of action right around the time, a little bit after the time the book came out. Of course, we all remember in November you started that hunger strike.
Yeah,
and said
November
you're not going to sign Yes, sir. And so I guess my question is, you mentioned Ron Daniels, you mentioned the great Ron Walters, you've seen and been at the center of so many battles, political battles. Obviously a sense of urgency animated that decision. You literally put your health on the line, sacrifice. I guess my question is, looking at this country right now, how close do you think this country is to a potential political fracture? Given the fact that you said, look, I feel so strongly about this that I'm willing to put my health on the line. We've got to get this right. How close do you think this country is? Are we on the verge of something that maybe we've never seen before in history?
Oh, yeah. I think we are literally looking at, and it may not be like the first Civil War. I think we are looking at some form of civil war. When I did that hunger strike, one of the problems I had was people were having moments, and they weren't creating a movement because people weren't sacrificing. God bless the folks some people were getting arrested and going to jail. Some folk were getting arrested and they were getting traffic tickets, or what I call citation. And I didn't, and I didn't think that there was enough pressure. So I channeled Dick Gregory. I kept thinking, what would Dick do? And I talked to his son, Christian, and we had a very lengthy conversation. He said to me, Joe, you know what Dick would, my dad would do. First of all, he'd probably go on a hunger strike and he wouldn't ask anybody. But I had to ask my wife. And she only agreed. She said, now, first of all, you're not that 34, 36-year-old kid you were when you and Dick were doing hunger strike. Man, as folk kept reminding me, you in your 70s now. I wasn't feeling 70. And so she said, you got to go to the doctor. The doctor said, why you want to do this? I explained. And he gave me the go-ahead. You're okay. And I never will forget. I got in the car, we're driving out of the parking lot at a doctor's office, and my wife looked at me, and she had never done this before. She said, are you telling me that you're willing to die for this cause? And I looked at her with one word and said, yes, end the conversation. And here's what I said. I'm doing this because I don't want my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to ask, Papa, what were you doing when the end of the second Reconstruction was starting? I know what they did at the end of the first Reconstruction. The first thing they went after was the vote. It was the birth of the Klan. They burned down churches. They lynched people all over the vote. And I saw the same thing happening. And I may not live to see the end of the second Reconstruction, but while I'm alive, I'm not going to have my grandchildren asking me, what did you do to stop it? Mm-hmm. And so that's what started the hunger strike. I think we are just a hair trigger away from some real serious conflict if we don't stand up, speak up, and I'm telling you, November 8th, and I'm saying this to everybody, don't sit here and wait until October to get started.
That's right.
Don't wait till September to get started. We need to mobilize now, and I'm saying this to all the leaders. They can get mad at me if they want to.
Take it over.
I'm like Dick. I don't care, and I'm not asking your permission. Will y'all please check your egos at the door? Check your egos at the door. You know, that's the old Quincy Jones sign that was over when they did We Are the World. We Are the World. He brought together the greatest artists in the world, and he had a sign, check your egos at the door and get organized, and more important, mobilize. Nancy Pelosi said something to me when they just as they were passed the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. God bless Bobby Rush, man. And he stuck with it. But she said something in this bill signing ceremony that she did at the Capitol. And she invited me to it, and Steny Hoyer invited me. She said, you know what? In Congress, we maneuver. That's what we do up here. We maneuver votes. We maneuver. What y'all did to get this bill passed, and I say y'all because it wasn't just me, you mobilized.
Yep.
And that's what got that bill passed.
Organized, mobilized.
After 250 attempts. After 250 attempts, in what, over 100 years? And that's what we have to do, organize and mobilize, and I'm telling all of them, check your ego at the door. Because this, if we lose at November 8th, we're in deep doo-doo.
I've been warning folks the same as well, and in channeling Reese, and I said this in 2008 on CNN, vote or shut the hell up. But it was funny, we were at the Democratic National Convention, and we were under the tunnel, and I see Brian Williams, and he pulls me aside, and he says, I'm loving the stuff that you do. He's saying, you're right, vote or shut the fuck up. I cracked up laughing, but that's it.
All right, put a dollar in the cuss jar.
Well, ain't no problem. But so that means $99 will go to the Bring the Funk fan club.
Oh, no, that's not yours. No, that's yours.
Y'all, the book is called Radioactive, a memoir of advocacy and action on the air and in the streets. my man, my homie, my friend, Joe Madison. Y'all, I'm telling y'all relax. We talk all the time offline. We see each other.
I hope they realize this was a treat, man, because we haven't done this on air.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I mean, this is raw. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, unfiltered.
There you go. There you go. We see each other. Y'all understand? We see each other at events. Me and Joe be on the side like, yeah, this is some bullshit. Yeah, I know. Like, man, how long we got to be here listening to this bullshit? I'm telling you, if y'all could actually hear those conversations and some of the stuff.
Excuse me. I put it in the book.
It's in the book. Get y'all a copy. I'm gonna have Joe sign it right now.
I didn't sign that.
I don't know if you signed. You did. I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
What did I say?
You are the GOAT. Joe Madison, the Black Eagle.
You are the GOAT.
That's you,
man.
Are the GOAT. I always enjoyed our friendship. Look, you've always been an honest truth teller. It's all about giving folks hell and letting them know that we ain't backing down. Or as Sidney Poitier said to me, there's no back up in you.
There you go. That's really cool. There's no back. I like that. There's no backup in you.
So ain't no backup in you.
That's why I say I ain't going back to the end of the first Reconstruction.
No.
And I'm not going to allow my children to go through we went through or what our folks went through for 100 years. Not going to allow it.
I appreciate it, my brother.
All right,
I appreciate it. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?